got home from Wichita a couple days before I thought. Didn't recognize the truck parked in my drive. My boots hit the hardwood floor, busted through the bedroom.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hey, here we are. We got a fantastic podcast planned for you today. Obviously, you can see myself, the American Outlaw, Sean L. Christ, SLC, and of course, I got with me the Casa Grande Casa Nova, the American treasure, Paul Leonard, and we are joined today by one of the most interesting athletes that I've seen this year. He is World's Strongest Firefighter for 2023. He won at the Arnold, and then he just got done competing at the USS National Championship in Dallas, Texas, and won his weight class there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to go ahead and introduce to you a fantastic individual, just a humble guy, Mr. Andrew Burton. Andrew, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing great, doing great. So, like I said, we saw you win it at the Arnold, and it was funny because then USS Nationals came up, and myself, Paul, and Gabe were sitting next to each other, and your name got brought up because we were just talking about like strength athletes and whatnot. And it was funny because I'm like an idiot. If you go back and watch the podcast, I mentioned, I'm like, yeah, I think he's here. At that exact time, you were sitting there deadlifting on the bar. I think it was like maybe the second or third deadlift you guys were doing, and then it clicked like, oh my God, he's right in front of us. And the coolest thing, and I'm trying to find the clip, and I will post it, I promise you, I'll make a clip, I'll post on YouTube channel, is we specifically asked Gabe Pena, so with this guy, winning, World's Strongest Firefighter, and the numbers of this guy, is he a competitor that you guys get your eye on? And his eyes got wide. He turned to both of us and was like, he absolutely is. He's been on the radar, and we were watching to see what he's going to do. And every time you got on the lift, Paul, you agree with me on that, he was looking dead at him, wasn't he?
Oh, 100%. You could see there were over 400 male athletes in Dallas on June 3rd, and a couple hundred female. There was 8 platforms going, and this is the first time we met Gabe Pena, Sean and I. So he sat with us, and we got to meet with him, talk with him, get comfortable with him, and I dubbed him Golden Voice Gabe because, and I got a man crush. I'll be honest. I am. He's amazing. He's the 6th person to deadlift 1,000 pounds, so he got to sit next to us. But yeah, when Andrew hit his lane to my 1 o'clock, you could just see Gabe just focused, and you stood out, Andrew. He was like, like when you see a thoroughbred, he's like, that guy's got it. And then I don't think you'd had the pleasure, and I don't think you'd met him yet, but man, he was super impressed with your performance, and you could see when you see a world-class athlete hit the platform, it's just different. And we love all athletes. That's why we create this content, and we promote all the athletes we can. But we're lucky today to have you on the podcast. So could you tell the readers and the listeners and the watchers and the followers a little bit about yourself, sir?
Sure. Man, I've been doing Strongman now for just about 2 years. I've been in the fire service now for a little over 10 years. I started off as a volunteer in a East Texas community. I was an avid Boy Scouter when I was a young man. I attained the rank of Eagle Scout by the time that I finished my time in scouting. But I've always enjoyed watching what they do and what they do for young men. So I enjoy archery, but every day I go out and I hit weights, or I do cardio, or I do something. I like to maintain a high level of fitness for my career and just for me. So,
outstanding. I myself, we were talking earlier, I lived in the Metroplex for 5 years, and I loved it. I loved that place. It was great to go back and see it. So Andrew's assigned to he works for a fire department called Rockwall, which is on the shores of Lake Ray Hubbard. So his fire station not only has your traditional fire engines and so forth, and ambulances and all that good stuff, but it also has a boat. So and when we were talking earlier, Andrew said, yeah, I picked that station specifically in that department because it has that multifaceted avenues where they can serve the community. So that being said, you've been your whole career in the fire service, you've been with Rockwall?
I started Rockwall was probably around 6 years ago, but I started my full-time career in a place called Hopkins County, where it was one of the few county departments in Texas. So it was a paid department. We ran 998 square miles in a place called Hopkins. We were stationed pretty close to the dead center of the county, and I mean that's where I started at. I was making like $20,000 a year as a fireman there. I got a ton of experience while I was there. We run a lot of fires, a lot of grass fires, and a lot of extrications. But I moved to Rockwall to kind of move towards the metroplex and start increasing my value in the fire service and to get a different taste for urban firefighting. I'd done the rural by that point for about 5 years, which I really enjoy because I love critical thinking. It's one of my favorite aspects of the fire department. But I wanted to move on to something that was a little more lucrative that would help me and my family get off our, or get on our feet and afford the things that we wanted and just to stay in the career that I loved.
Understood. Could you talk a little bit about your family? We didn't get into that in the pre-show, so tell everybody about your family.
It's just me and my wife. We live in Lavon, and she comes to me to Strongman. She works in Collin County. We just have a good time. We love to travel. We went to Iceland 2 years ago. It was one of my favorite trips I've ever taken. We went to Alaska before that. I enjoy cold and hostile environments. So she doesn't enjoy them quite so much, but we like to go find beautiful places where not so many people have set foot on, and we like to go out and experience that sound of that quiet that you get when you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, amazing! How long's the flight to Iceland? How'd that work out from New York?
I'll be honest, I can't remember where we laid over at, but it was, I think, 14 hours total. And the jet lag was the first time I'd ever been just obliterated by jet lag. I slept for 23 hours straight. My wife thought I was dead.
Oh, wow. I haven't been to either of those places, but I've been up into Montana in the summer, and it stayed light till 10:30. So when you went to Alaska, was it in June, right? They have the midnight sun. It never gets dark.
We were there during that time frame. I think we had 4 hours of dark. We didn't catch the part where it stayed up the whole time, but they've got the dark shades on all the windows to try to mimic what it looks like at night. But it was pretty odd to get up at midnight and pull the windows back and that sun's just blaring in. A pretty odd feeling.
Yeah, that's like the whole month of June, I think, is like that.
Yeah.
So what cities did you see in Alaska?
We went to Denali. We stayed in Anchorage for a bit, and then we went out to an area called Seward, Alaska, which had a fantastic, I'm going to say state park that went up this mountain towards these glaciers. It was one of the most beautiful hikes I've ever been on. We hiked in, I think, almost 6 hours. We had to turn around only because I didn't have the gaiters I needed to cut through the snow, and I was filling my boots up with snow water in my toes. I couldn't feel them anymore, so I was like, we better just turn around before we do damage. But it was phenomenal. We stayed on a place that housed a bunch of sled dogs for the summertime, I guess, and trained them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a pretty cool stay too.
Fascinating. You see any wildlife? You see any grizzlies or any moose?
Not any bears, but tons of moose. We saw a big old porcupine while we were out walking, a bunch of chipmunks running around, lots of different bird species. But yeah, I'd have loved to seen a bear.
Oh, cool. Maybe not too close, but when you went to Iceland, does Iceland get dark at night?
It does. It has, I think, similar issues that Alaska has. So as you go through the year, the light gets longer or the night gets longer, depending on which time frame you're in. But we were there, I think, maybe 12 to 14 hours of light. So we got enough to sleep normally.
When you're up there, Andrew, did you do any kind of like cold weather training just to see if you can train in that environment, or you just kind of stick to the standard?
Man, you don't have to train up there because, good Lord, I went and picked up some of the stones. We went and did some of the stones in the area. So we went to Husafell and picked the Husafell stone up and walked it. The winds that day were sustained around 60 miles an hour. And they were coming off the mountains with all the snow. So I think the temperature that day was around 35 to 40 with those winds, bringing the wind temperature down to, I don't even remember. It was cold.
So when you did the Husafell, did you go full circle?
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm full circle. I'm not partial.
The Husafell stone has been around since probably the Earth's been flat. But as an old head like me, it was written up a lot in Milo, and it means you take the 400+ pound stone the full distance around the sheep pen there that's in Husafell, correct?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. We have a friend. Do you know C.J. Pierce?
Just about to talk about him. Yep.
DJ Pierce. If I do, I might know his face. I don't know his name.
He's from Arizona, but he's 90 kilo pro strongman, and he won the world championships in Florida last year. But he went full circle too. I'm jealous. I mean, I want to give it a pick, and that's awesome, Andrew, that you have that sense of the history of it, which is that warms my heart, because if we don't promote it and pass it on, I mean, who's going to do it? So hopefully you got some video of that.
I do. It's actually on my YouTube channel.
What's your YouTube channel for the followers
Oh,
here?
I'm trying to bring it right
It's
now.
Andrew Burton 428.
Is 428 your badge number?
428 is not my badge number. It's actually a Boy Scout number.
Oh,
whenever I was
outstanding.
back in the South. It's our OA or the Arrow Lodge was disbanded at one point, but that was the number that we had allotted to us, and it's a number I was very proud of. So
Outstanding. Yeah, you are the first Eagle Scout that I've ever interviewed, certainly in the strongman world. That is outstanding that you got value from that program and so forth. I was aware of the Scouts, but I didn't pursue it like you did. So that's fascinating. So athletically, as a Texan, like how I grew up, high school football was huge for me growing up in Boston. Did you play high school football?
I did. Actually stopped, I think, my senior year when they won state.
Oh man,
I said I was the one that was holding them back. That's okay. I love team sports, and I got a lot out of them, but football just wasn't my passion.
Sure,
As
understood. We're getting
I got you.
we're getting
Trying to
Sean's
pause your
queuing up.
channel.
Yes, Sean's queuing up
my
the Husafeld. But so what other sports did you play competitively as a young man?
I loved track. I did a lot of individual sports. So powerlifting and track were the two that I was just committed to 100% of the time. But I threw shot put and discus being my absolute favorite. And then powerlifting, I went through that and went to state every year I qualified for state every year. I went twice, and the 2 times I went, I bombed out a lift every time. We had to travel, and I didn't know how to recover as a young man. Our training wasn't correct yet for what we were doing, and we didn't have the coaching available to teach us how to travel for an event, and then hit your numbers when you got there.
Sure. No, I know exactly what you're speaking of. So being a power lifter at heart, and I've done the teen nationals, the collegiates, and the men's senior nationals. When I moved to Texas, my buddy said, "Hey, let's go look at the Texas high school powerlifting championships." And I walked in; it was at Capel High, and there was 10 platforms going. I was like, it was 1,000 lifters. I was amazed, and of course it ties into their sports programs there. But I don't think there's a state in the country. Louisiana's close, but they don't have the numbers, size game, if you will. But there's no state in the country that has a high school powerlifting like Texas, like opportunities. But again, like what you said, I worked with I've coached some kids, and I went to coach a high school football team here in Tucson a few years ago, and there's 80 kids in the room, and there's one of you, and you're like, I was like, whoa, it was very hard, because I wanted to dial in technique, and the head coach, the football coach is like, no, you can't, it's, you kind of just got to keep them in a lane. It's hard when you come from a powerlifting background where you're like, okay, I want to show this guy a squat. Well, there's 70 other lifters going on. But so you graduated high school. Did you go to any post-secondary education after high school, or right to the fire service?
Right to the fire service. My initial thought was to go to the military, but I got my first girlfriend who we were real serious with, and I look back and I wish I had just gone and done it, but she went to college, and I stayed back and I worked and paid off everything I could. Went and baled hay, took random jobs, helped roofers take shingles up to the roof. I've done a bunch of lots of yard work, but we stockpiled money. We ended up getting married after she got out of school and moved in together, and I went and did my fire academy and my EMT academy right out of high school.
And that's your wife today, sir?
It is.
Oh, so it worked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In the end, it was perfect.
Outstanding. So when did you first discover Strongman? What was your moment?
I've been watching Strongman, so I very much enjoy CrossFit too, and I love watching the CrossFit games. Absolutely. I mean, those are some phenomenal athletes. I love Rich Froning. I love Matt Frazier, and I love Justin Gilhermos. I have a hard time saying his name, but I also love Tia. I mean, Tia's a ridiculous athlete. But so I was watching that stuff, and they started throwing in some strongman events. They started carrying some bags and doing some different stuff like that. And I was like, man, I need to start looking to strongman because I've always loved strength sports anyways. That was the powerlifting background had put me into that. But then I started watching the World's Strongest Man. And I started going back a bunch of years and realizing all those athletes are people that I knew, like Paul Sigmundson, Magnus for Magnuson. Those were all people I knew of in the strength world. I just didn't really realize who they were. Uh, and I've been wanting to get back competitive in the fire service again, just to give some purpose to my workouts and give myself some new goals and all that. So I signed up for a novice competition. I actually was at Battle Axe Barbell in Garland. I went and signed up for the open. I actually didn't sign up for the novice. I've never competed novice. So I just signed up for the open, and I was like, I'm going to go with this with no intentions of winning. I want to see if this sport's something I would enjoy doing. And I did the contest, placed very low, but had a great time, met a lot of great athletes, and kind of learned a little bit about the sport and realized it was something I would think about pursuing. So I signed up for my next one right after that contest, and I've spent the last 2 years now moving up the ranks.
Well, that's
absolutely,
amazing.
Absolutely moved to ranks. You won national.
Oh yeah,
World's Strongest Firefighter. You just won the USS Nationals in Texas. I'd say you moved up quite a bit there, Andrew. But
2 years, man. That's what it definitely took a lot of work and a lot of time.
You said something I was curious about because I kind of like ask this question to everybody that we get on the show is that you kind of said it. You're like, I've never done this before, but I just want to try it. So you just went all in for it. So somebody that's maybe thinking about doing this, what's the best advice you can give them to say, hey, this is really all you need to do, or this is the best way to go about this? Because they're all going to
Step one, sign up.
There it is.
You got to sign up because if you don't have a date, you'll never do it. You'll never step out of your comfort zone if you don't just go ahead and spend the money. It's $100. There's, if you need to, go take out some old lady's trash a few times. You'll be able to afford it. But you just got to do it, and you got to commit to it. I'm trying to get one of the other firemen at the fire department right now to sign up for a novice contest. He's another big old boy, but he would do good.
And you got bit by it, and of course, once you get bit by it, it's kind of addictive.
I love competition.
Yeah,
I've always loved competition.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, if you're joining the chat right now, we got Andrew Burton here, 2023 World's Strongest Firefighter and USS National Strongman Champion, and he's a firefighter by trade, and he does this amazing sport that we all love, and it's just amazing seeing him on the platform. And like I said, I saw him win the Arnold, and then I pretty much was more than maybe 15 feet from you for about 10 hours when we did the stream one night, and seeing you live, it was incredible. And and Paul and I, like you said, we gotta get this guy on the show somehow, and we're glad you're here, man.
I'm so glad you invited me.
Absolutely. And you heard it. If you're feeling that you want it, you're feeling froggy, just do it. It's like anything. You don't know until you try it. And I think us as athletes, just as people, we always kind of sell ourselves short because we think, I probably won't do that good. Then we do something, and if you find a little bit of success, it's like, ooh, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought.
Now I want more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Andrew, you told us about how you and your wife got together and kind of like what you guys did after high school. So when you finally, I guess, kind of took a step into strength, now, were you always an athlete? You said you did track, you said you did stuff like that, but when did you get into like the heavy weights, the real heavy weights? Because you're a bigger guy. Was it powerlifting?
It was really powerlifting in high school. So I actually went the CrossFit route when I was working to get into the fire service because I wanted to show up to those fire department tests and be the athlete they didn't think I could be. And anytime a coach told me in school that I couldn't do something, they got proven wrong very, very quickly. So had one tell me I would never run a mile. Well, I ran a mile, and then one tell me I would never run 5 miles. And I've done multiple mud runs. I've done an 11-mile Spartan. It's not the Beast, it's the Ultra. Mm-hmm. I've done a Spartan Beast that's 14 plus miles with 50 plus obstacles, and then I've done a Tough Mudder that was 11 miles with the fire department. So I'm no stranger to putting in the work and grinding and doing the things that people don't think a 300-pound man can do.
Exactly.
That's where it stemmed from. The coaches would tell you that, oh, you'll never, and it kind of stems into what we were talking about earlier. They couldn't really teach us form, and so we were trying to learn on our own. between all of us, but we're all a bunch of kids and we're doing what we can. And it's right at that edge of where the internet was becoming a good source of information, as long as you knew how to dig through what was incorrect and the people who didn't know what they were talking about. But we did our best with what we had. Powerlifting pushed me into the big weights. CrossFit got me into the real fitness side of it, and then Strongman got me back to the weights.
When did you kind of take that next step to kind of like say, oh, I'm sticking now to more or less the weights instead of the CrossFit route? Because you said you were dabbling in that.
It was after that first contest that when I went to the Battle Axe and competed. I'm trying to remember exactly what events they had there. I can't think of them specifically, but I'm sure there was a deadlift that I probably was in love with, and I couldn't deadlift as much at that point anymore because in CrossFit I never pulled over 600 pounds, but I would pull it for touch and go reps for whatever I needed to do. So I had to transition over to doing more power-based deadlift explosion exercises, whatever it was. Grip strength, all that had to come full circle. But no, that's really all it was. Is just I did that first strongman contest and realized I wanted to get back to the days when I was the strongest person in the gym.
The alpha. So who were some of your earlier influences that you were able to glean information off the internet that was helpful for you, Andrew?
Lead FTS was one that I really enjoyed looking through. They just, they used a lot of the West Side protocols because they were from West Side. And so we would try to watch their videos and their content. And back then it was really just the articles. The YouTube versions hadn't really come out, so you couldn't watch people squat real easily. But you could read through the processes and try things out as you go. And then we would have coaches come in and out of the school as they, got new jobs or left for whatever it was. And they would try to help us with what they knew. So we were just piecing together from all kinds of different sources. But Elite FTS was one I looked at the most. One of the other guys I worked out with consistently, he would pull from everywhere. Muscle and Fitness, maybe bodybuilding.com back in the day had the newsletter already.
Yeah, I used to write for them. They bought 4 of my powerlifting articles, and then kind of the winds changed, if you will. They kind of downsized their content, but yeah, you're right. There's some good information on there for sure.
Yeah, and then we would peruse YouTube for people lifting and stuff, and that was where it came into learning who knew what they were talking about and who didn't, because anybody can get on and make a video that says that you should do X, X, and X, but then, their body type might not be my body type. They might not have the same length femurs I have or the same length torso. So it was all just a long process of learning what I needed to do and trying to help each other too, because we were all different body sizes and body types.
Sure.
Anywhere from the super heavyweights to we had a 114-pound guy that was in the featherweight category. He was a phenomenal athlete too.
Sure.
Some of these lighter weights and strongman, they move, and they move with a quickness. It is very impressive. I mean, everybody kind of watches the strongman, specifically for like, oh, the big guys that heavy weights. But it's like, dude, you can't knock these guys that are obviously the lower weights, because it's still incredible. Like, you might find somebody like 152 pounds moving like 315 pound stone. You're like, what was that? And he's quick.
When you break it down into a percentage, you're like mind blown, because the big guys can't do those percentages. There's a diminishing gains as you become a bigger person, but for them, man, it's just like the ceiling's the limit.
Absolutely.
As a strongman, have you ever had a regular training partner? So, like, I'll tell you, if you ever want to laugh, put in YouTube, put in the old Freak Factory. That was the group I was training in strongman. Kevin Kinsey, Charlie Captor, and it was in Southern California. Josh Bryant joined us. So that was our crew, and some Saturdays we had up to 20 people, so it made it funner and more productive, because how when we used to train medleys, 100-foot medleys, to set that stuff up as a workout. So have you had any strongman crews or that you've trained with, Andrew?
I have not. I've been a solo athlete pretty much from the get-go. I have people that wash in and out of the gym for a couple months at a time, but they never stick it out. But that's fine. I think that training in that solo style really lets you put your mind towards the goal.
Yes.
And not so much about the camaraderie portion of it, even though I miss that part. I love having a friend around or a buddy around, or those days when you hit that big deadlift and you're like, I really don't want to take all this weight off by myself. That's like that's the second workout nobody wants to do.
Putting the weights back's the hardest weight in the gym.
Yeah, I'm like you. I love the cruise, but now lately I train by myself in the garage, and I'm not competitive anymore. But I saw, the GOAT in strongman is Zydrunas Savickas, and I saw his he did a training series a couple years ago on YouTube, and he showed every day in his life, and he trains alone for the most part, and he says, he goes, because then when I get in front of a crowd, it gives me more juice. And he's probably won more Big Z has won more strongman world-class championships than anybody and set any more records. So it's, you do what you can. So this brings me to the next point for our listeners and followers and watchers out there, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Valor and Venom YouTube page. What is your life like now in terms of with work and training? What's your schedule?
Well, it revolves around those two things, basically. So I work on a 3-day schedule. So every third day I end up at work for a 24-hour shift. At the simplest portion of it, I'll wake up, I'll get to work, and that's about 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll pull up to the station. I make sure I chug water during that drive up there, I should say. I get out, check my trucks, go through all my equipment, make sure everything's ready for the day, go inside, shave, brush my teeth, do all that stuff, and we'll have breakfast as a crew. Sometimes one of the guys I work with, he'll get out and run. I might get out and walk a little bit just to get the heart rate up, 10 or 15 minutes, and I like to stretch in the morning if I'm going to do anything. I absolutely hate having to push the limits in the morning. So that's not my favorite time. I'm not a morning person. I do my best to just do the minimum. That time's too valuable to let go.
I'm the opposite. Like if I don't do it by the morning, it's like it ain't getting done. I have to do it in the morning.
I'm 100% an afternoon lifter. So we do our normal processes through the day and get everything done, and then we'll about 2-3 o'clock we'll get in the ice bath, and we'll all ice bath together and laugh and cut up, and then we'll all go our separate ways. One of those guys does a bunch of CrossFit workouts. He's getting ready for a elk hunt in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go into the back and I'll get on the stair climber and get nice and warmed up from the ice bath. Get about 20 minutes on there, get off and stretch dynamically for my lifts that I'm going to do that day. And generally I choose to do shoulders or overhead press at work. It's just a little bit easier to recover from and doesn't put me into a really damaged state to do any kind of fires or extrications for the day.
Mm-hmm.
But then after all that, it's all recovery. I might stretch a little bit before bed. And in the morning, I get up, I come home, I make sure I go back to sleep because I get anywhere from 5 to 6 hours, maybe, at work. So I come straight home, I get some more sleep, and then I'll head to the gym around 11, 12. Do my next movement for the week, and then I will do a fully dedicated cardio day at home. So I don't have to, not always having to drive somewhere. But it kind of helps alleviate my mind of having a day that you can rest and relax. And I can do a 20-minute cardio workout, or I can do an hour cardio workout, depending on how I feel for the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here, okay, on the podcast, on Valor and Venom, by World's Strongest Firefighter and U.S. National Champion. Strongmen do cardio, hands down, if you want to be a national competitor.
And stretch.
Yeah.
Yes. What is your tell the listeners what a cardio workout is like for you? They might vary, but tell us all that you like to do, because you're tipping the Toledo at over 300 pounds now, right?
Yes, I'm 320 right now.
Jesus.
Good man.
And I'm a big fireman. You won't see a lot of us this size. Cardio for me is dependent on the day. But generally, I will stick to, and I know this is terminology everyone might not know, but you can Google it pretty easily. I will stay in the zone 2 section, which is a heart rate for me around 150 to 155 beats per minute. I like to maintain that for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. And then days where I go past that into the zone 3 or zone 4 sections, it typically takes me an hour and a half to get to that point. But I will like to try to maintain those heart rates for 20 to 30 minutes of time. But I will do probably 2 weeks of all my cardio is all going to be zone 2. And then that third week, generally I have a day where I hit that I'm just like, I'm ready to rock today. And that's the day that I get down on it, and I'll hit 170 and try to maintain it for 10 or so minutes.
Woo.
Wow. And what modality are you using to get there?
I like to row. I absolutely love rowing. I've also got an assault bike at the house. That's one of my least favorite pieces of equipment.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But is why I use it, because I hate it so much.
Yeah, speaking of that, so I got an assault bike last year too, and Like, let me ask you this, because I used to be 325 and I'm down to 255. After about 15 minutes on it, my butt, it's not comfortable. Did you get a custom seat or something?
No.
Oh, okay. Did you stand up or something?
I just ordered the fat guy gel one, so it's like that much gel cushion.
I need it
because
bigger.
I'm like, this is enough.
Yeah. So you didn't. So you didn't modify. You got a stock assault. Tell the listeners you're going to stock assault bike, and you can be on that for. You want it for more than 30 minutes?
Longest I'll do on that if I'm doing high output work is going to be about 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh wow.
But if I'm doing low steady state stuff with that, I will sit on it for 60 minutes. But if you hit 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like it's not going to kill you to get up and take a quick walk.
Right.
Let that blood flow through the little buttocks and alleviate some of that pain. But sometimes too, things that you want to do, they're uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
it just kind of falls in that category of let's just put it aside. It's only a little bit of time for the day.
Since we're talking about the assault bikes, I'll
Gotcha.
bring up my assault bike thing because Paul got one, and I saw him. Paul was injured for a while, and we did an arm wrestling pay-per-view, and I saw him show up there, and Paul was all lean, and then Paul put on the size, and I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, I got an assault bike," and just started doing that, started leaning out, and I'm like, "Wow, those things are horrible, but they work." The reason I'm saying is because I actually have one in my living room right now. I just got it, and I just got cleared 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I know some of the viewers have probably heard this, but it's going to caveat onto the next thing I want to talk to you about. Is I had a stroke back in 2022, January 3rd. So I just got cleared about 3 weeks ago to fully go back. Like everything came back, heart rate's doing good. So the biggest thing now is cardio. And let me tell you what, that thing, it's brutal. And I'm just like, you're like, this is ridiculous. I'd rather just get on the bar and just do like 315 for like, like
you ever
5
just
for
think
5.
I just like to have another stroke so I don't have to do this anymore?
Pretty much that's came across. Sometimes like, God, I should have just went. But the reason why I want to say that is because Paul and I always have to ask these athletes because you talk about you have a specific routine, a very, very well specific routine. Like you ice, you stretch, you do cardio, you do all this stuff as strongman. Have you ever had an injury that kind of like shocked you, or kind of like, uh-oh, I need kind of change up, or have you ever overcame something that was kind of adverse that got you back into it, and you learned pretty much from before to now you implemented what you learned to now?
I mean, it's a constant state of little things happening. I popped my hamstring probably 6 weeks ago, doing the silliest thing, Cossack squats. It just popped for whatever reason. I'm assuming maybe I was dehydrated at the time, and it was just an after effect. But that took a long time. I had to modify the workouts and the deadlifts and the squats I have in my programming to kind of sit just above that place where it hurts. That way I could still train, but I wasn't putting that spot in a bad position again to let it heal. But it was also moving new blood in the area and expediting the process more than likely. I've had a couple of injuries. The most severe one I had, I actually ripped the muscle completely off my big toe on the bottom of my foot at one of my strongman contests.
Oh,
and it was the first time I ever did a 2-day contest in Dallas.
Gotcha.
And it was a keg carry, 300-pound keg. I don't remember the distance, but the first implement of the first event of the first day of contest, I picked that keg up, took off running it, and ripped that muscle right off that foot.
Oh
And
my
I'm happy to
goodness.
say I finished the contest. I still got 6th place against all odds.
Oh
It is
my
a
goodness.
story now.
Yeah. Oh,
That is a permanent injury. I did not have it reattached. I had it x-rayed to make sure it wasn't broken, but it is now constantly feels like there's nerve pain.
So do you just got like it's pretty much it's just there's the bone and it's like right underneath it just flapping around?
Yeah,
Wow.
and sometimes it feels like I'm walking on the bone.
God.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So footwear for you. So can you never? I wear Chuck Taylors when I lift, and when I did strongman, I would wear sometimes Chuck Taylors. Sometimes I had these Converse All Stars that had 1-inch padding all the way around, and I had some boots. When I pulled a train and a plane and so forth. But like, what do you wear for footwear now to protect yourself? To give you any help with that?
I mean, really not anything. I'm wearing Nobles at the time. They're just training shoes that have like a 8mm heel incline. I like to be flat and connected to the ground whenever I'm lifting. Even when I've done pulls, I've worn those same shoes. I wouldn't mind going and buying some rock climbing shoes. I have ginormous feet. I wear a size 16 and a double E. So it's kind of hard to find.
What I gotta tell a story real quick. So at Miramar, when I was in Crash Fire Rescue over there in San Diego, we had this one guy come in. I think he was a reservist. I could be wrong, but long story short, he was Big John Stud's like nephew or something like that. That was like his uncle, like whoever it was, and like he checked in, and we're sitting there like, we're not gonna have any gear. I mean, I think the biggest jacket we had for turnouts, I think, was like a 55, maybe a 60 in there. So we had to call headquarters of Marine Corps, like, hey, listen, here's this guy. Like, we had the measurements, so they're like, no problem. So they rushed it. When they gave us all his gear, all the tags, they all just said this. It didn't have a size. It just said jumbo, jumbo, jumbo. We're like, what the hell is jumbo?
One size fits all.
But it's just a funny story. There was one of our firefighters. She was on the turret and she was washing it with the hatch open. I mean, not trying to like say we weren't dangerous, but he was inside doing some paperwork. And where the turret was in the PNT, and he was kind of, because he's a big guy, he's got to straddle it. She slipped, and she fit right in there, and she just fell in his lap like a baby. And somebody has a picture where he's holding her, and you're like, that's a child, because he's just like, he like just car like this, and you're like, that man is gigantic. I mean, he had to have been pitching. Like I said, you said about 320. I couldn't imagine being more than 320, but he might have been pushing maybe 330, 340. But it was just proportionally large individual. I'm like, oh my god. It's awesome. So as you can see, Andrew Burton is not only the world's strongest firefighter, he's custom made head to toe.
Those are that's some of the biggest feet I think I've ever. When I lived in LA, I did meet Shaq, and I didn't look down on his feet, but I was in a shoe store out there where they had he had a 22 shoe that they have like it's chained, you can't take it away, but you can pick it up, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's an exhibit. But so tell the listeners how your size and strength has helped you serve the community. An instance where maybe you ripped a door off a car, or swam out and grabbed a boat that was sinking and brought it to shore. Tell the listeners, we're all interested.
Well, you're saying all my favorite things. One of the other favorite aspects of the fire department is the fact that I just get to break things and I don't have to fix them at the end of the day. But yeah, we've gone to fires where the door's got to be breached, and I love to be the person that walks up there, and you'll see the guy with the hammer or the axe trying to sledge it in, and I'll just turn around backwards and I'll mule kick it and it'll explode.
You're like,
that's one of my favorite party tricks.
Yes.
Any kind of door forcing doors is always a pretty violent maneuver with all those tools that we use and all that, but strength definitely comes into play whenever you can manipulate those tools and you don't have to use your body weight or anything, or throw your body weight into it real hard to make it move.
Do you ever
car doors too? I'll bend them backwards to get them out of the way rather than having to cut them off. But
do you ever
that's what. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you ever get challenged by somebody and pretty much you just shut up by like, all right, we're gonna do some hose dress. Go grab that 5-inch. We'll have some fun real quick.
That's when I got hired. When we did the original PT test that we had, it was a lot of hose dragging, and they jaw dropped whenever I grabbed a hold of the 2.5 and took off. It was charged, so it was full of water.
Right.
Yeah.
That was always a fun part. I'm telling you, if no one's ever experienced, I know they have. I don't know if you have like Jane Wayne days. Used to have it where like people can come on base and kind of try the implements that we do, and it's fun because it's just tactical training as best you can. And then you do this, you go, okay, now we'll put the full turn-ons on and do it. And they're like, wait, what? It's like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
When it's 115 out.
I think one of the most, and it's not the most, but it was one of the gut checks I did is that when I went to fire school, when I transferred from 3rd Battalion 6th Marines to go to Crash and Rescue, we were doing OJT, and then, it was first come, first serve, and as soon as you get a spot opening, I got the spot that was from May to September to go to San Angelo, Texas, and do the fire academy for that. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I think I checked in. I think it was like 225 was kind of my average weight. By the time I left, I was telling Paul I was down like 191. I mean, I was like, I was like, you couldn't. I mean, he's still working out, still pushing the weights, but it was like, I'm like, I don't like this at all. It was just all that baby fat went away. I mean, I looked sick because you just can't stop sweating it out. And like in Texas, I try to tell people, I go, not only is it hot, I go, you also got the humidity. Paul's been in Texas, so he knows it. And I go, man, anybody that trains in this state, it's interesting.
Well, and you
It is.
like you related. Like I've trained in garages. I lived in I moved to California. I built a garage gym. So starting in '97, I lived so California, Arizona, Texas in between. So I've noticed as a strength athlete, it's cumulative. Kind of by the end of the right now this time of year, about 10 weeks into the summer, and we've had 110 degrees over here for 2 weeks straight. Like your body just gets depleted, and you can't get enough. You can't get enough Pedialyte in you.
No.
I don't know if they still sell it, but back in the day for our old heads, but we used to go to the feed store in California, and I'd buy this stuff called Equinade. It was Gatorade for racehorses, and we'd mix it with iced tea, and it was. I mean,
I'm sorry, Paul. You're like, so we used to just go to the farmer supply shop and buy the stuff they give the animals and the cogs and the cows. Like,
it's 100% true. Like I've had all my physicals. I'm healthy now, but we'd go there, and this said 1 scoop for a 1,000-pound animal. We'd make a big vat of it of iced tea.
Oh.
We never cramped.
and then we used to eat our lunch in a bag wrapped around our face.
If you cramped, it was for the wrong reason, I'm sure.
Oh God, yeah, that's funny.
But
I never heard that story.
Yeah, no, I got a million of them. It all comes back. But so yeah, now you guys have had quite the hot summer in Texas. We were over there, and my friend lives there. So the Metroplex is sweltering. The whole Southwest is, right?
It was hot.
I hear that they keep giving us the heat advisories and stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's worse this year than it's ever been.
No, we're the same way here.
Yeah, it's 2 years ago. There was a heat wave that came through that I remember. There was like 30 days of 100-degree temperatures and 100% humidity.
Yeah.
That time period, that one got rough. This one hasn't been too bad. I can walk outside in the morning or at night, and it's comfortable, and that's pretty abnormal for Texas.
Yeah, I mean that's us. It's like people are like, oh, it's hot over here. It's in Florida. It's like 97. It's like, dude, it's like 110 every summer here in Arizona. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and we're south. we're 2 hours south of Phoenix. But I heard on yesterday on the radio that Maricopa County, which is Phoenix's biggest county, there's been 60 deaths this summer attributed to heat. Have you responded to heat emergencies there at Rockwall?
Tons. Generally, it's people not drinking enough water or spending too much time outside, and people who can't thermoregulate anyway. So they're typically the elderly population, or very, very, very young. Because kids are you can't take a kid down. If you take a kid down, you've done way too much.
100%. So you're also a paramedic, correct?
I am.
So did you end up having to bag people and give them, immediately give them like IV bags?
I don't think we've had any just like really like full heat stroke this year. We've had a lot of heat exhaustions, but I've started a few IVs to get some bags going.
Gotcha. What about now? Again, I'm familiar with the Metroplex, so if our listeners aren't, Rockwall's it's a nice community.
It is.
There's parts of the Metroplex, as any major city, aren't as nice. But you guys, do you administer Narcan out there?
We do. Our police department also administers Narcan, so the opportunity to get Narcans within the first few minutes of any kind of respiratory arrest is pretty high.
Right. I think everybody thinks that Narcan just for pretty much the people that OD or overdose is like, no, there's more applications than you can with that. It's actually fantastic what they have in your bag. Like you said, respiratory is number one, and with the whole COVID thing, that's ultimately affecting your respiratory. So you're seeing a lot of things that people might not realize, and it does help out. I mean, I got an inhaler now. Not saying I use it every day, but I had COVID twice, and it got bad to where it was like, all right, well, I got this little thing. I'll take a little blimp here and there just to see how it is. And even some mornings I wake up, you just feel all mucusy, and it's like, let me hit it real quick, hit it, and okay, that clears it up. But yeah, I never got the experience of Narcan. I don't think they had anything that bad, but
you got to take a bunch of opioids to experience Narcan.
Jesus.
Or the reality of it. I'm in law enforcement, so the reality of it is the illicit drug trade. You don't know what you're taking. You know what I'm saying? The counterfeits and the fentanyl that's so prevalent. But I have, being out here in Arizona, not when I was in Dallas, but in Arizona, I have killed one rattlesnake on my property. Do you guys respond to rattlesnake strikes out there?
I'm assuming that they would call us for one, but I have, even when I worked in rural Texas, I've never been called for a rattlesnake. And I've never seen a rattlesnake bite come into the ER when I worked at the hospital. I've only ever seen copperheads and water moccasin bites,
which are
people
don't know water moccasins are they are rough.
Yeah, I saw it. When I lived in Flowermont, I saw a huge one in the. We had a stock pond there that was near our community center, and this thing was 4 feet, and it was
Probably a
Not,
temper rattler.
it was not no joke. It was making time in that water. So do you have a boat yourself, Andrew? Did you get out on that lake? You like that?
I do not. I don't have a boat on myself. I actually am not much of a boater. I've done a lot of kayaking, canoeing in my time with the Boy Scouts. But the boat at the fire department has been a learning curve for me. But it was something I really wanted to take on. It's just a new piece of fire equipment that I get to play with and learn and become proficient at. So I've actually been on the boat now for about 8 months. We've run a few calls and we've explored the lake a whole bunch. I'm still learning how to use the equipment effectively, like the sonar and the mapping systems. But I've had a blast with it. This is I've been on a boat maybe 2 or 3 times before I got to this station at the fire department.
Outstanding! How exciting! Are you at your fire department? Are you one that drives are you an engineer? You drive the rig?
I am. I'm the driver for the department. I have been since I started there.
Nice. Did you get that certification before you went there, or they just said you're gonna be the driver?
Yeah, I had it previously because I was actually a lieutenant at the department I came from, but we would have to split a lot of times. So I had my driver op certification as well. So that way, I would be legitimate to take a fire truck to a place in the county.
What's your favorite position you think you've had in the fire profession since you started? You were 18 years old until now.
The one thing I've never gotten to do was be a fireman, and I think it's always just because it's the one thing I've never gotten to do. I'd really like to try it one day.
Yeah.
But as far as favorite, I mean, they all have their ups and downs. When you're in a position like a lieutenant or an officer, obviously, things come back to you, no matter how silly or whatever it is it might be. But if the public gets angry, you're the one that has to deal with it. If something happens on shift, and it's your responsibility to handle. So there's good and bad to that. And then same with being a driver, there's a lot of responsibility in getting the apparatus and the men and the women to the call safely, and also protecting the public while you're on those roadways and responding code. Because for some reason, nobody knows that you're supposed to go to the right and stop for a fire truck.
Listen, I can't tell you how many times I've had a mean mug or get out of the truck. It's like, you guys have got to move.
Yeah.
Like, I understand you're trying to go somewhere, but you're in the lane. Please move.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? But
if there's time, you'll stay and say, listen, if it was your mom or your kid or your daughter or your son or whatever, your family, you would want somebody to move out of the way. So you need to give that same respect to get it.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you a question now, and it's not to kind of like bring down the fun time we're having here, but I will ask it, is just because, and I'll share mine if you want me to. Since you've been on the fire department, what has been, if you can talk about it, what has been kind of like one of the, I guess, most sombering moments, or kind of like with a call you've been on that has always stuck with you? That it's like, oof, like
I'm always careful too with these, and I know you know why, but I think back to some of the most defining moments, I guess is what I call them. They're defining moments.
Yes.
When you learn what kind of person you are and what your mind is truly capable of.
Yeah.
We've had some. I won't say what department. I won't say the areas and all that. But I've been on a suicide for a young 14-year-old boy. That one has stuck with me for a very long time. He went to his house, and there's a longer story with all this. We actually almost caught him in the fire truck by complete happenstance. There was construction happening in the area on an FM road. It was a single lane route you could go. He ran the red light. We didn't know who he was. We didn't know that he was out in a vehicle. We'd just been dispatched to a residence for somebody who was having some psychological problems. He ran the red light. I had no idea that was who it was. When we pulled up to the house, that vehicle ended up being there. And when we walked inside, I didn't even let my partner come in. When I walked in, he had walked into his parents' bedroom, grabbed their .45, and blew his head off.
Jesus.
And so that was a hard day. That call went on for hours. The family made it there before the police department did. And so of course, I considered a service. I kept them from going inside because they did not need to see that.
Right.
Of what had occurred. But that was pretty much just me getting beat up and being a brick wall in front of the door, so mom and dad couldn't get inside, and they knew what happened.
Yeah.
So
and I appreciate you sharing that, Andrew. I know, like I said, you give enough details, but you can't give all the details because you don't need to know.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you, and I'll tell you one of mine here in a second. But you talk about unfortunately suicide, and that's one of the things that I try to tell people all the time. It's you never know what somebody's going through, so it's not say to like always be uplifting or be this, because we're all humans, we all have our moments, whatnot. But I go, you don't know what just basically saying to somebody, hey man, you're doing pretty good in the gym, or hey, you look nice today, because you don't know where they're at, and that might be a thing that keeps them from going left or right. And Paul and I have talked multiple times, even people at the gym. It's like people that go to the gym, and I'm not trying to say like they just go to the gym to like look at that, but people that really go to the gym, like your regulars, like you always see the same people when they're all at the same time. Even if you try to like change up your schedule, it's like, is everybody off today or what's going on? Like I'm gonna hear a totally different time, but yet the same people are still there. I think mental health and the gym go hand in hand. If you can get in the gym and you're dealing something psychological or mental, I'm telling you, the gym is one of those secret drugs that it really will stop a lot of problems once you just get in there. All you got to do is just show up. Even days you don't want to go, just get in the door. And once you're in the environment, you're like, okay. And I'm telling you, because I mean, I've recovered from psychological stuff with that, mental stuff, and the gym has always been there. This, like I said, this last year where I couldn't go to the gym, that was like the time I'm like, okay, this has been my thing since ever, and now I can't do this. Like, okay, this is a problem. But it's man, it's just you got to watch out for that, and the worst thing about that is, unfortunately, you said it was a 14-year-old, hasn't even experienced life yet, and
well, yeah, everything was ahead of him.
Right.
So
it's like a bad moment. Unfortunately, one bad decision, and a big decision.
And it affected everybody.
Exactly.
That was the time. That was the moment that I realized how much one life could affect, like where it touched, where the tentacles got to, and just how far they could reach.
I'll and I'll tell you mine, because obviously I don't want you to feel like you're alone out there. So the biggest thing that we responded to Crash Air Rescue over at Miramar was we had that F-18 go into La Jolla. I believe it was 2008. I think it was December 7th, December 8th. And I mean, it's like we saw it. It was 300. It was like 300 yards from the runway. So like we saw it come in, and we got the call. So we're all staged and watching it, and all of a sudden you just see this thing coming, and all of a sudden just goes. And I mean, he ejected, because those things are built like a lawn dart. An F-18 is not. It's not like a Cessna that can fly like this. Yeah. So it's like, oh my god, he just crashed. So we punched it. We get out there, and we fought the fire. We fought the fire for probably maybe about a good 2 hours. We finally got it. Maybe 3 hours. We finally got it like contained. So it's like, all right, now we got to do search and rescue. I was tasked to be done, so go take a break, and I was walking the command vehicle. And unfortunately, the call was that the F-18 went into a house. And one of the houses, they said there was a family of 4 in there, but they haven't heard anything else. It was a grandmother, a wife, a daughter, and then a brand new baby. And I remember we were walking up, and I was basically going to say, hey, we're done doing here. Everything we got to do. And I remember the search team was coming, and there was one Marine, and he has children. Like, he was a family man. And you could see him that he was just kind of like because he knew what he had to go do. I remember our gunnery sergeant looked at him and looked at me and just goes, can you keep going? And I was like, what do you need me to do? He goes, take McLeese's take his place. And I was like, absolutely, I'll take his place, because I got it. And because you don't know until that moment, like you said. And from then on, we went in there. Unfortunately, we found the deceased and whatnot. But at that point, it's kind of like, okay, who doesn't need to be here? And then one of the other reasons why that he wanted me to go is because in our tours that we had overseas in Iraq, again, we've experienced that. And a lot of these guys, like you said, a lot of these people have never experienced that, and you don't know what's going to happen. You may have great people with great careers ahead of them, that unfortunately something like that, and it just shocks them to their core, and then it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. So you got to expose people to it, gradual over time, not just like a big shock and awe factor. So that was
especially at such young ages. We were young. My partner was like 20.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think I was. God, how old was I? I think I was like 20. I was 25. I mean, that was.
I was probably closer to your age too. So, being a young man and learning hard truths about the world, it was, eye opening.
Well, EMS and military, I say the paper may say 25 years old. You ain't 25. You're like 40 mentally, because it's just the stuff you got to deal with. I go, look, I go, this looks great. The inside, that's like a rusted truck. I go, it's just a lot of miles on his tires, man. But no, that was just something I just wanted to ask you, and I appreciate you taking the time and answering that. And,
absolutely.
And that's the thing that we're here. We know we're all about strength sports and all about that, but the coolest thing about what we do and what Paul and I get to do every single day is that most of you guys and even the professionals, we're just everyday people that have everyday jobs. Like we have full-time jobs, and the strength stuff is a hobby. But unfortunately, I'm just not saying fortunately, but fortunately, we're successful at that hobby, so it's like we're going to keep going with it. And those that do get pro, that eventually becomes a career for them. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's just like, oh, well, that person probably does this, that person does that. It's like, we don't got sponsors. All we do is just go to the gym, just show up, and we just do it because we love it. If you do it because you love it, you're going to succeed at it. That goes with anything, any job you have, any kind of event you're going to do, or any kind. Like if you're in school, it's just do what you got to do, and do something that you love. And if you love it, the good things will come. I promise you.
It's one of the most focused parts of my day is concentrating on the lift, being able to put it all in right on top of that one thing, and then that turns the brain off for a little while. You get about 2 hours where it's just focused solely on this one goal, and that's to be stronger at a lift or be more technically agile at it, or to increase your foot speed or be able to be more athletic, whatever it is.
And it's like
that's your time.
And it's like a reset button, because you could be going through something, get in the gym, do like, okay, what was I worried about? What was I doing? Like, and you go right back into it.
Nothing's harder than this.
No, I 100% agree on that. Paul, I had a question for. I know. Oh crap! I forgot. I just had a lost train of thought. Apologize for that.
It's all right.
But you're saying, so you said you were 18, and then you had your. But you said you always want to be a firefighter, or no? You said you joined the military, then you went to be a firefighter. But
I had initially thought I was going to join the military out of high school. I had no intent of going to college. I was done with the formal education system, and just ready to move into something different that was just different.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about being older and going to school. Okay, I just went back to college. I graduated high school, and I'm proud to say this. Okay, I graduated high school with a 2.0. I passed every test and do any of the homework. Okay, so I knew where I was going. Okay, I signed up for the Marines, all that things. So I'm back in college right now. I got a 3.5.
Nice.
I'm just like that going to college right when you're out of high school. I think that's kind of overrated. Not saying you can't do it, but I'm like, you're doing it. I'm doing it, but I'm doing it now because I choose to do it and I want to do it. It's different than getting forced into doing it. So like
I'd be the guy asking the instructor, "You need your car washed, or should I just be in class today?"
so that's funny. The reason I want to go with that is why did you flip on to switch to be a crispy critter and not be like a police officer or something like that?
Police had crossed my mind, and I'll just be. This will be the brutally honest portion of this. I don't have the mentality to be a cop. I don't care for people who are wrong to tell me I'm wrong. I don't. It's not. It's not in me, man. I've always been called one of two things: the moral police, and I've been called brutally honest. So those two things really don't work well in the policing, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would have been in a substantial amount more danger as a police officer just because of my mouth than I am as a firefighter, because the fire doesn't talk back.
No, it doesn't, but it definitely bites you sometimes. That's for sure.
It does, but it's what every fireman's worst fear is probably burning alive. I would think that's it, but none of us ever feel like that's going to happen to us.
No, especially if you got a good crew or whatnot. You're not gonna let your buddy burn. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
they'll pull you out. And that's the other thing I'm gonna ask you right now. We'll go into that. Is that a lot of these things you see is like I was telling you about Big John Studs, like nephew, and then we had our the one firefighter, and like I said, she was like 5'1". When you're doing your training, you're doing your yearly or your quarterly, your monthly trainings, where somebody has to drag you because you do weigh 325 without turnouts, without gear on. How many people in your department can drag you, and if they can't, is that all? That's okay. That's what I figured. But that being said, I mean, do they try to train themselves so they can? Because like where I always try to tell my guys was that hey, you got, it doesn't matter how big you are, you have to be able to pull the biggest guy. Because I wasn't the biggest guy.
I'll preface it with saying too that my expectation is that self rescue is number one. So that's why I maintain such a high level of fitness.
That's why that's exactly what I said. I said I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it because I need to make sure I can go. Because if I can't, I know there's probably like 3 of you that can pull me.
Yeah, and I'm not crazy, and I don't expect a lot, because I know that I'm the one packing on the weight. I'm the one that's making it a lot harder for them to do that. So my expectation for them is that they do what they can without putting themselves in mortal danger. Because if three of us burn up in a fire when one of us could, that's just not acceptable, not in my mind. And my wife knows that I feel that way. My wife knows that I teach my guys that when they come in to the fire station, that's one of the first things out of my mouth. I know I'm a big boy. My expectation is for you to give it your best effort, but if you have to leave me behind, that's what you have to do. But granted, I will say that I've had these guys, this last crew I've been with, they've worked real hard to learn how to manipulate a body, how to manipulate something as heavy as I am. I'm almost 400 pounds of gear. We have a prop at the station that's somewhat of a setup of a Denver, but it's a lot larger.
Okay.
So it's not the little casement windows. It's a big window like what you'd find in like a 2-story house. So it could be on the second story, it could be on the first story. But I'll just get up on the platform and go limp, and they will work it out between the two of them how to get me up onto the ladder, or at least over the windowsill, which gives you a pretty substantial amount of survival. You know what I mean? Because then other people can put 2 ladders up to come send 2 other firemen up, and you have 4 people working to extricate a large person. And it's the way that I would do it if we came across a 400-pound person who was bedridden that needed to be extricated from a fire as well. Put up 2 ladders, send up two more firemen, and then have 4 people working that process. But man, they work hard at it. Like I said, my expectation's pretty that they give it their best effort, but they don't die in the process.
You're realistic about it, pretty much what you're trying to say. Yeah, you have to be. I mean, there was a time us at Miramar. I mean, I swear to God, I was like, do they not make pilots that are not 6'5", like 300 some pounds? I go. You do understand we have to pull you out of a cockpit, right? And that's just like. There's only so much room to do so. I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. And there's some I've just looked at. We met at like the mess nights. I'm just like, I go, sir, if you go down, I'm gonna cut your legs. Like you're gonna lose your legs regardless, just so I can pull you out. I go, I mean, I cannot get you out of this thing, just so you know. So like, don't screw up. As morbid as that is, but hey, whatever. I was realistic.
Well, it's what morbid humor is where we stay most of the time.
You have to be. Paul and I were saying that's the best. It's like, oh, my legs are broke. All right. Get the concrete saw. Oh, wait, I'm okay. Oh, you're okay? No problem.
Your legs are broke, but he gave you 2 of these.
Yeah, that's right. You got.
Start walking.
We got a chair with wheels, buddy.
Yep.
Andrew, again, I appreciate you being here today. We're at pretty much the hour mark, and I haven't seen any questions for you. I typed in there to see if they did, but we're gonna keep going if you want to keep continuing this because I'm having a blast talking to you about this. Paul, do you got anything for Andrew? Any saved rounds, real quick?
Well, yeah. In the pre-show, we want to thank him. He told us that him and his mom listened to the Strongman Nationals broadcast that we did live. So we appreciate anybody listening on this Valor and Venom YouTube page. We can assure you that it's family friendly. So if you didn't get to join us live today, please like, share, and subscribe this YouTube channel. My YouTube channel personally is Paul L. Check that out. Check me out on Instagram at Paul J. Leonard, PLUSA. And Andrew, do you have an Instagram for the folks?
I do. I believe it's at AB428.
I'll pull it right now. I'll double check it.
And it's the same as your YouTube?
Just without the name written out, similar. But just I think it's the 2 initials.
Because social media, we like to get that out. I got to study your social media in preparation of this, and I love seeing what you're doing. I guess Battle Axe Barbell is that air conditioned?
Oh well, I don't think so. I haven't seen one in there.
But it's not too the doors are open. It's air conditioned. Air goes through it.
Well, because I trained at the original Metroflex in Arlington, Texas, where owned by Brian Dobson and famous and Ronnie Coleman's videos, and there's no air conditioning, and it's. I'll be honest with you. I got a strong stomach. That's the nastiest bathroom in the world. I will say that. I love Brian. I'll tell him that. I heard recently on a podcast, and that was a heck of a place to train with Josh Bryant, who on YouTube you know him as Jailhouse Strong. But that's a great gym. Dumbbells to 300 pounds at one time, and it's notorious. But when I got there, I said, "Oh, there's no AC, huh?" And Texans do that to you.
Yeah, that's what makes it hard for me to stay hydrated too. I'm constantly taking salt and potassium and stuff. So, but it's just part of it. And I've heard different people say different things, but one of the things I think is probably a legitimate reason for not having air conditioning is if your body's cold, your muscles are cold, and if your body's warm, your muscles are warm and a lot less prone to be injured.
I just think it separates you because I mean, like even we were overseas. I mean, we're sitting here trying to like pull Humvees with like freaking tow bars and chain, like all this
Yep.
all this stuff you see now that you pay for. I'm like, that's what we had to do. It all came from the military being overseas. Like people just like, we're gonna monetize that. It's like that's just what we had to do. And I just tell people all the time. I said, it's if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. And the thing about it is that the people that do it with you are some of the best friends you have because you're all miserable together. And I try to tell people that all the
That's
time.
what I
I
was
said,
gonna say.
no matter what, the worst times you had, the people you're having those worst times with, you're bonding, and you just create long-lasting friendships. I mean, right now, unfortunately, I love doing this with you. We're having the second of a reunion in West Virginia right now with the Marines I served with. Fortunately, I couldn't go there because we're doing this, and then we got a show next week as well. And everyone's like, what's going on? Because we went there 2 years ago. It was the first time we did it. Since 2006 was the last time we saw everybody. So a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
And Paul knows my background. I roll my eyes because it's ridiculous. I have a plethora of things that I've done for entertainment, for sports, as an amateur professional wrestler. So we put on the final show because when morale would get down overseas, we would just do wrestling because he was a big NWA fan. I was a wrestling fan, like Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair. So we finally had the last was he beat me in Afghanistan. I beat him in Iraq. So we never had the rubber match. So we're like, let's do it. And he was 42 and I was 30, I think it was 37 at the time or 38. It's just like, I'm like, I just came off a powerlifting meet. So he's like, you want to do this? I said, I just got done training for this. You want me to do this now? Like, all right. So we did it. And the place went nuts. And they're like, we got to do another one. And I was like, well, we'll see. And then obviously what happened, I go, you coming to wrestle again? I said, are you out of your mind? I said, I am nowhere in the shape to do any of that right now. But it's just that those guys, like I said, you have your meatheads, you have your DVD bunnies, and that's just the way it goes. It's the same thing with the fire department, same thing with the military, and it's just the guys that we just look at it. It could be raining. I'm telling you, it could be raining sometimes. We just throw the goggles on, no tent, and it's like, well, I gotta get my workout today. I mean, it is what it is. It's not
either
dangerous.
do it or you don't.
Yeah, and I just love that when people I get it. Sometimes they complain, and yes, I like to be comfortable too. Like now, like Paul and I were talking, like I shower 3 times a day. Why? Because I can. Because there was a time when you couldn't. I go because I want to.
Yeah.
But you get people in there. It's like, oh, what's up with this? What's up with that? It's like, do you want to do this or not?
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to do it, there's the door. But if you want to do it, just shut up. We're all miserable. Let's just get through it together. So I'll get off my soapbox real quick.
So yeah, if you could tell, having a public service career, which I've had, so you have to balance your training around and your lifestyle. So tell the listeners, there must have been a time you got warmed up and your military pressed the bar, then 135, then 185, and then the alarm went off at the house, right?
Yep. It happens all the time.
Yeah. How often do you think your workout when you're at the fire department gets interrupted by work calls?
I bet it's twice a week. You're working anywhere from 3 to 2 shifts a week, depending on the schedule. But I bet it's twice a week. We catch a call while I'm either in the midst of a warm up or in the midst of a set, and it's just part of it.
Sure, your station's pretty busy.
Yeah, we were one of the busier ones on the south side of Rockwall, which is where it's pretty built up. We've got the harbor in our area and a whole lot of neighborhoods.
Sure thing. So if you go for a call for 2 hours or so forth, you'll probably come back and eat something and maybe get back to training. You've done that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I go right back to it. But I start over. I've learned my lesson from years ago, just trying to jump back into it. But I warm all the way back up, and I do have a limit though. Like if we do it 3 times in a shift, and I come back and try to work out 3 times and don't get it through it, it's just we're done.
Yeah. I did that too. You don't have kids, but I did that too when I had my twins. Twins really kind of put a crimp in my strongman career 20 years ago. They just turned 20 last weekend, so God bless my twins. But I had a thing where I read you're supposed to go through 3 sleep cycles in a night. So my goal was just to fall asleep 3 times their first couple years. It was, I learned my lesson. I rolled when they were 6 months old. I rolled a car, being out late. Well, being out late one night, and we were, being a federal agent, we got a call that we were investigating some prison crime. And long story short, we got out there, and the subject went to work at a prison in Victorville, California. So while we're searching his house, we found explosives. We uncovered this thing, and there was explosives, and we're like, oh, so we called the bomb guys. They took about 2 hours to get there. So I've been working about 24 hours, and we were standing in the parking lot after we did our deal and so forth, secured the place. And the last thing somebody told me was like, "Hey, do you want to just get something to eat and get some coffee?" I said, "No, I can drive home." Well, I rolled a car on the way home, and I'm okay now. But you learn your lesson how sleep is important. So how sleep? I tell everybody, these young people, anybody listening, it is the greatest PED. It's free.
1,000%.
It's 100% better than any whey protein and any of these supplements and pre-workout you can buy. So how have you balanced your sleep needs, Andrew, with being a public servant and a national level, world-class level athlete? How do you balance your sleep?
I put it first. So normally what I would want to do in the mornings when I get off of work is stay up, do chores, get things accomplished for the day. But instead, I've pushed all that stuff off to the side, especially while I'm in prep. And I come home and I go straight to bed, and that's that. I've tried to sleep for another 2.5 to 3 hours, which gets me a whole nother REM cycle, which is usually the one that I'm lacking from work. And that seemed to help because I'm averaging anywhere from 5 to 7 hours on non-work days, and then work days can be 5 hours or less sometimes. But I mean, you just do what you can. I'm not afraid to catch a nap for 2 hours when the opportunity arises. I always try to give it a 2 hour time frame because science tells me that that's how long it takes to get into a REM cycle and a deep cycle and go through that whole process. So I try to fulfill. I do the best on 9 hours of sleep. I rarely ever get 9 hours. But I also monitor my sleep data with a Whoop strap I've been wearing for years, and I've been able to make it work with what I've got.
Oh, I've never heard of that product. What is that again?
It's a Whoop strap, so it's a
he's got it on right
heart
now.
rate monitor, and
Okay.
it sends all my sleep data to an app. It also tracks my workouts, and it watches your heart rate throughout the day, and then it also does it's got a stress baseline on it. I can tell when I'm at work because my stress is usually pretty high. But it takes all those into account and puts it in a calculation and gives you a heart rate variability score, and that determines your how good you're doing for the day. Like your recovery score, I guess, is just the best way to put it. So you might be in the red, which is bad. You might be in the yellow, which means that you're somewhat recovered, and then the green, which means that you're primed to take on strain for the day.
Outstanding. I've heard. I haven't done stuff like that myself, but I've tried to be what you do when you talk to high level strength athletes. You find that there's a level of intelligence and in how they take care of their body is how the general public worries about their cell phone. If their phone falls off, oh my goodness! Like, no, the store doesn't have any more of those. But the greatest computer you'll ever get, right, is running yourself. But thanks for that insight. That's very interesting. I'm going to look into one of those because I do like when you learn something. That's why I get on these podcasts, and I consider myself a training editor, if you will. So to kind of tie it all in together, because we're going down so many roads, and we could talk to you forever. So fill the readers in on the ideal lifting schedule that you follow during a week with the reality of your job. Like, how many days a week do you train with weights? And you said at work you'll do a shoulder program, because I understand why I couldn't. I have a desk job now, but I've deadlifted in the morning and then gone to work, and then about 2:00 you get the deadlift flu and your eyes are drooping and you just don't feel good. There's no other way to do it. So if you could tell us like the ideal week, how you strength train, that would be very helpful.
I do 4 days of strength, especially in the prep blocks, and that gives me time to work technical aspects of the lift and also to let my body prime up to be, primed to take on a huge load. So I'll do those. I'll do those preps for 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how much training I have in the event at that time. So I'm doing circus dumbbell right now at work, and I'm not very good with the circus dumbbell, so I'm doing 2 times a week in my overhead program, one that's very heavy, one that's extremely light for speed reps. And that gives me time to work my technical process on that circus dumbbell, figure out where it needs to sit overhead, and figure out why it is I miss a rep if it happens. But I'll do 2 overhead days and 2 leg days, and that seems to work pretty well for me. They're almost always the leg days are almost always deadlifts with squats as accessories. And then the overhead days, there's usually some sort of overhead press and then I'll do the tries and buys during that time frame, and then I do back on all those days. I mean, every lift in strongman is pretty much back oriented.
Correct.
Same with core.
Correct.
And then I'll have my 2 cardio days every week, and those will be really geared towards recovery from the strain that I take on from the lifting. So I won't try to blast myself with those unless I said, like before, that I just feel really good and I'm just ready to take it on.
Sure thing. Do you? So where do you fit? Where do you fit like the events? Let's say you got a yoke or a drag. Like when I tried out for my pro strongman kind of 21 years ago. Our medley was a 750 yoke and then a 750 sled backwards, and we had 2 minutes to do it. And I did it, but my body, I saw my soul leave my body, and that night I had a full body cramp where I couldn't get out of bed. I sleep face down, but I literally had to flop on the floor to crawl to the bathroom. But mission accomplished. But how do you train your events? Like obviously it's contest dependent, like you described for the listeners. You have 10 to 12 weeks. Strongman is so organized now, but at the same time, it varies. There's about 50 different tests of strength, which makes it so appealing as somebody that comes like you do, like I did from a powerlifting background. You know your 3 disciplines. Well, you don't know what it's going to be. There's about 10, 12 different ways you can deadlift and overhead press and circuit and all these things. So that all being said, how do you do your events, your moving events, if you will?
I'll throw those events in with whatever it is I think that it fits in with best. So I'm doing right now, the prep is we're going to do a farmer's carry with 330 pounds of hand. That falls in on my deadlift day. So I'll do my deadlifts on my speed day, and then I will go and do the farmer's carries after the speed work and do the carries and work on the foot movements, work on the deadlifting with those implements as well. Being able to keep a nice neutral spine and be able to stand up correctly with it, because it becomes more of a quad exercise when you get those farmer's implements, it seems to me. So I can really hit those hamstrings hard on the deadlift, and then I utilize my quads a lot more when I'm doing the farmer's carries to pick them off the ground. We're also doing a sandbag throw. I'm doing the throwing on my upper body days as well, even though it's a very explosive movement and almost more of a full body movement, but it seems to fit well into that programming there. It's really just specific on the movement that we have set up, but I'm also prepping yoke right now, and I'll be honest, I've just had to throw it in those cardio days because I've got so much. I'm prepping for 3 contests right now.
Wow, yeah. We're interested in definitely hearing about that. And
sure.
Your experience is similar to what I did. I was a West Side barbell lifter, but what you described in the upper body, when I came over, I had benched over 500 when I came to strongman, but I didn't have that shoulder mobility really for overhead press at that time. So we would have, our log was going to be 275 for reps back then, but if you can believe that, this is 20 years ago, it was an Alumatech 12-inch log, and you just get 90 seconds to do as many reps at 275 as you could. But my strength was okay, but I added a West Side barbell speed day where I'd use about 70% of that and do doubles and triples. And, I'm a student of the game, and that really helped me. And same thing with the yoke. The way we used to train it back in the day was, because we'd call it strength cardio. We would do, if we were going to do 100 foot at the contest, it was nothing on our light day for us to do 500 feet with a half the weight. We would do these distances because strongman, when it came out in the United States in the early 2000s and really started growing, they did these obscene distances because they had a lot of fat, out of shape powerlifters like myself coming into it. So there was somebody that wanted to see someone keel over or torture us. And we also did a lot of tire flip. I took an 800-pound tire 100 feet, and that was life changing. Kind of, then there's been some accidents, but I'm sure you've had some experience flipping tires. So tell the listeners about what 3 events you have coming up. We're very interested in hearing about that.
I'm going to the original Strongman Game regionals here in the Dallas area. It's going to be in Mesquite. That's my first one coming up. After winning nationals for USS, I signed up for a pro show in September that I believe is in Illinois. And then I am qualified for Strongman Corporation's National. That's in October. Those are the 3 that I've got on the books right now.
Wow, outstanding! And is there a similarity in any of the events in those? They'll each have some type of overhead press and a deadlift, but it's a different event. You must know the events already.
I do. There's the two most recent coming up. They're both going to have a monster dumbbell press for reps at 220 pounds, which is what I'm training the circus dumbbell for. Um, the They both have a deadlift event that's a deadlift from the floor, I believe, on a Texas deadlift bar. I think that's where the similarity ends. They both have a sandbag event as well, but one is for a max distance, and another one is a sandbag to load and then hand over hand drag.
Man, those sandbags for distance. So the first strongman contest I did was California's Strongest Man in 2001. Right, we got there, and it was held up in Jamestown. And not to bore the listeners, but that being said, it was a 325-pound anvil, and they just said, okay, you pick it up and you go as far as you can. And oh man, I was a 700-pound deadlift. I was, oh my goodness, after about 200 feet, my legs locked, and this lumberjack he did like 400 feet.
Adam, yeah, don't tell me that. I don't need them to do 400 feet.
And he weighed like 220. He came out like the California foothills, and I was like, oh my god,
that's all he does all day.
Yeah, I was like, I'd never. It was really neat. I'd never even held a real anvil. I'm a city boy. We also got to pull a 66,000-pound train that they used in different westerns. So that's the beauty of strongman. So, other than the Husafelt that we talked about, and you're full circle, which means you've gone the full distance of the sheep pen, what's one of the neatest things you did that you just look back, you're like, man, I did that. What was the neatest thing? And you have hopefully pictures and video of it.
The Arnold, whenever I went and did the strongest firefighter contest, that sandbag event there was a pretty short one, but it was fun. And when I dove for I was at the end of my glucose stores, and I was chugging air as fast as I could, but I knew I wasn't going to make it if I didn't do something drastic. And when I got within jumping distance of the line, I just let her fly and let the bag carry me as far as I could get. And I only had to push it over just a little bit more whenever we got done with that. But the crowd went nuts, and that's been one of my favorite moments.
Oh wow! What did that bag weigh?
It was 300 pounds.
Yeah. Oh my god, almost body weight. So I have never, and I lived in California. I ate his restaurant, but I've never met Arnold. So what was it? Did you get the chance to meet Arnold?
Oh yeah.
I did, and he also gave me a couple minutes just to talk between me and him before he let all the everybody come up with the cameras, and I thought that was super special for him to do for me.
Yeah, I love Arnold. Everybody that lifts weights does. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, and when he did, in his speech, in his speech, you can pull it up on YouTube. But he referenced that he was a powerlifter 3 times, so it's near and dear to my heart. But Arnold, he has done. He has done so much for the iron sports, and I can't wait to meet him. So, when you went to the strongest firefighter in the world competition at the Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, did you have to qualify for that, or were you invited? How did that work out?
We were able to sign up just because we were paid firemen, and that's what they wanted to give them an opportunity to go and compete. But the first day of that contest was a prelim to get into the contest, and they only took 18 athletes to the big stage. 3 of those were already qualified the year before. One of them, I believe, was injured and couldn't compete, but they let him come on and MC the event, which was really cool.
Sure thing.
But the other, think about the number there, 16 of us had to qualify between 3 weight classes, which was the women's open, the men's open, and the men under 231.
Yeah, there's following it. I'm a big fan, and I know that Jim Lorimer passed away, and it's kind of changed the operations of the Arnold. So will you be going back there? Will that be an annual thing, or once you win it, do they give you the opportunity not to? Or what's your plans going forward on that?
The plan is to go back to the Arnold. The thing that's up in the air is that the same time that the firefighter contest is running, they're also running another Strongman Corporation contest that is like the next step after nationals. I believe it's worlds. So the question is how well I do at Strongman Corps Nationals, because my intent's to go, I would like to get a professional status as a strongman,
right?
And go as far as I can with the strength sports. But the firefighter contest is definitely near and dear to me, and I'd love to do it again. It's just a matter of what happens with that other contest.
Since we got you on there real quick, Andrew, I got it pulled up here, and you can go ahead if you're watching the stream right now, or you watch it later on, is if you go to his muscleandfitness.com, or if you type in Andrew Burton, you can find one of the few things that come up right away is actually your muscle and fitness, kind of like they ask you some questions about you getting ready for it. So I want to go over this with you because I love that we caveat into it, because you got some quotes on here, and you kind of talked about the sandbag. We'll get in a second. But the one quote on here I like because it says the ambulance tire deadlift. And if you want, you're basically going to see Andrew with 3 ambulance tires with rims on a deadlift bar. And in here it says, I trained with the deadlift bar because I knew their bar was going to be so long and I had to have more to give, he shared. Fortunately for him, he had been training with the Axle barbell, which is solid and thicker grip. So you were training with the Axle for this, but then they switched you to a standard, like a regular standard deadlift bar. How was that? Was it different? Was it easier? Like, what was it like going into that?
Well, the weight for me is just not. It wasn't crushing a soul crush. It was soul crushing doing it for a minute at that weight for sure. But
Yeah.
I believe I'd done that axle bar for another contest as well. So
Okay.
I've been in that prep for a while. The transition over though is just knowing where the pull is going to initiate. So when the deadlift bar, you have a lot more slack that you have to pull out. With an axle bar, you're not really pulling slack; you're just pulling it tight. Uh, so you have to kind of pull yourself down to the bar. Whereas with the deadlift bar, I can pull the bar up to me a little bit, which
Right.
is more comfortable for me to pull from. I like having the wiggle in the bar. I like having it with a nice little curve.
Yeah.
It comes up and it sits nicely for me. So, but it helps being close to those implements and having used them a couple weeks in advance with some reps, just to let your body figure out where it wants to sit and let it become kind of just like an autonomous thing where you don't have to think about it. You just fall in the right spot and know that's when you're supposed to, start the pull.
It's funny you say that because at an event that Paul and I were at, remember at Hope for the holidays, there was an individual there and he was posting pictures leading up to it. He's jacked. The guy's got traps with the here. But when he was prepping for as an actual axle deadlift, he was performing it on a standard bar. And Paul and I love gear. I have at the gym that I go to, I personally bought one of those big Hess strength solid steel knurling like 85-pound axle bars, which is fantastic. God. It's the greatest thing, and I love bringing that thing out because people are like, "What's that?" Because I love training grip as well, which I try to tell people. I say it's the one thing that people just don't train, and it's the first thing that's going to fail. It's not going to be a pulled back. It's not going to be a pulled muscle. It's going to be your grip is going to go. But if you can pull that thing at 315, you start from there. But the one thing that happened for this individual is that I think he was pulling in his videos that he was posting on IG. I think he was up to he was over 700 pounds he was pulling. But I think he started out with 600 pound on the axle. And when he went to go do it, it didn't move. And I tried to tell people, I said, you got to train with the equipment you're going to train with. I said, but if you're going to do it, if you don't have a deadlift bar, at least find an axle bar. Because if you can pull an axle bar, you're already at that sticky spot. So when you got that little bit of bend and they got the momentum, you'll be able to get it more. Do you agree on that, Paul?
Yes. Yeah. You should definitely have a familiarity with the equipment, but at the same time, my approach was always to make training as hard as possible, so the contest was easy, like brutal. Yeah. Just make it brutal. When we would flip tires, what we would do is take the West Side barbell 20-pound chains, and we would bolt those inside to make the tire heavier. One of the things I learned, Andrew, like when I had farmer's walk, my best was with 2-inch handles and no straps or anything like that. I did 300 pounds each hand for 146 feet. And our medley was 200 feet. So a few people finished that like Clint Darden did, but I didn't. I did okay in it. But one thing I found, like you said earlier, your toe injury, I found during the week that my feet wouldn't recover and I'd be all chewed up, but my grip would be. So what we would do would be put a trap bar on top of our power rack, and we put the West Side barbell blue bands over our shoulders, and we'd hang for time to help us get stronger for the farmer's walk, but it didn't chew up our feet because our certain body parts, your lower back takes longer to recover than your feet, but your grip not. So the one thing I loved about Strongman was it was a puzzle, and you always had to figure out how to overload your body, but not. You wanted training to be brutal, but you wanted to show up at that contest ready to go. And one of the things you alluded to earlier is you're the type of person that's like I think the bigger and stronger you get, the later in the day you function better. You have calories and you've got fluid in your spine, which dehydrates overnight and so forth. That was my experience. But like, if I deloaded all week and didn't get at my training correctly, I was like a caged animal. I couldn't wait to the day of the contest. I'm like, okay, we're lifting at 10. I can't wait. I've been waiting for a week, right? Is that your experience, sir?
Oh man, I still get really nervous at contests.
Sure,
we all do.
I think it's just because we care, but yeah, I want to touch the implement. That's all. That's what I want. I want to get up on there. I don't necessarily want to stand in front of everybody. That's one of the parts that's still hard to deal with when it comes to contests and all that. But I've trained all this time to touch this implement and showcase what I can do, and that's what I'm itching to do. I tend to not sit when I'm at contests. I like to walk and watch other people's lifting. I like to, pull what I can from the contest besides just what I'm doing. So I like to watch. But yeah, that's
Yeah, you folks nowadays, and you alluded to this earlier, when you started, you got some good information off the internet, and it's like any source of information. You got to kind of figure out whether it's for you and the source thereof. But back when I was doing competitive strongman, it was just message boards, so they would post things, and you wouldn't see YouTube. So nowadays, lifters, it takes more discipline. I mean, you're like, okay, today's my plan is go to 70%. And then you see, name the star. Back in the day, it was Derek Poundstone, or the first American to win World's Strongest Man after many years was a firefighter. Phil Fissner won it in 06, and no one had won it since Kaz in 83, or 82. So that's amazing, the drought there for American athletes. But my point is, you look on YouTube and you go, oh my God, look at what Srdrunas Savickas has done. And now there's people watching you, Andrew, like, oh my God, look what he did today. Like, and they go off their plan. And it leads to mental, the mental gymnastics. You're like, oh my goodness, look this. I'm going up against this person. I think in your class alone at the Nationals, there were over 83 athletes.
Oh, it was one of the biggest. Right. It was one of the largest, I think. Lanes.
I'm kind of ignorant. I don't know the process about how to become pro now in strongman per se. But so in one of these 3 events coming up going forward, if you win, you have a chance to become a pro.
For the United States Strongman Corporation, I do. That's that September contest. Nice. It is a pro show, and it has got pro weights, and there are supposed to be, pro competitors there. So I'm pretty excited about going and showcasing against those guys.
And where's that one at, Andrew?
I believe it's in Anna, Illinois.
Okay, that's one in Illinois. Gotcha. Okay, great.
Well, we can't wait to see what you do with that.
Absolutely.
Just the opportunity to turn pro. Because when I referenced my pro-am that I went to, there was 30 of us in it, and there was also, you got to compete on the same field. I saw World's Strongest Man Sven Carlson at the time. He was reigning, so he won it in September of 01. I did my pro-am in February of 02, so it was right after 9/11, and they kind of opened up travel again. But I saw Sven, and if anybody knows him, and look up him on YouTube. If you don't know who Sven Carlson is, he was World's Strongest Man, but he pulled his hamstring on an event. So my buddy says, "Hey, give him a hand." He put his hand over my arm to like help him shuffle off, and it was like a statue. Like I was looking at him, and I'm like, man, I'm a hot dog compared to this guy's filet mignon. Like his tissue felt like if you shot a bullet off it, it would bounce a 9mm. I mean, it was, and he came in second that day overall to Carl Gillingham, the Gillingham family won. But we got to do right on the field with the pro-ams, and the sport has grown so much in the last 20 years. Our friend Willie Wessels he's hosted over 1,000 contests, and Strongman Corp's probably hosted about as many. There's so many more opportunities, but really, I'm excited. We're excited here at Valor and Venom to watch you go forward and wish you all the best, and really hope you do go pro. That's going to be amazing.
And there's something here also I want to bring up. Oh, sorry, I'm going to cut you off there, Andrew. But
that's right.
I like that Paul was talking about the things that have changed. And there is some myths about strongman. And reading this article, and I'm going to read it verbatim, and I want you to comment on it. But we're talking about your infamous sandbag carry at the Arnold. And I think you know what I'm going to get with this. Is everybody thinks that you've got to come in first place in every event to win strongman. And we tried to tell him, I said, you don't got to come in first place. Just show up and give it your best, and you'd be surprised. There's guys that have won strongman that have been second, third. They didn't win one event first place, but they won it based on the points. Going into here, I'm going to read this for you. Next, the athletes had to carry 3 different sandbags 40 feet as quickly as possible. Some fire departments use a drill similar to this during training. The bags Burton had to work with were 220, 250, and 300 pounds respectively. He finished the event 5th place with a time of 43.33 seconds. Now, in his defense, the top 5 finishers were less than 3 seconds apart. And it says, and Burton lost you lost your balance carrying the final bag, which held him up. Since Burton competes strongman in this common event, he already had sandbags he could work with. It says, this was a matter of mastering a technique, and he has used slightly smaller bags to prepare this. And then you responded with, I have a 300-pound bag at my house. That was just the threshold. where we're taxing on the body, said Burton. I could train with a 271-pound bag, and it was that nice area where I could train but not be thrashed. So, like, during that event, and obviously, I mean, you stumbled, but you still were in, like, I mean, it was like bang, 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 bang. So it wasn't like you were, like 20 seconds or 30 seconds apart. I mean, it was quick, especially at that level. So going into that, 2 questions. 1, preparing for it, and 2, getting back on that, trying to talk to somebody that you don't got to be the best at everything. Yes, we all want to be the best at the events, but you just got to give it your all and be the best that you can be at that moment.
Consistency is key. So if you can be consistently in the top, whatever it is, it's really dependent too on how many contestants are at the contest, because the spread on points becomes a lot wider the more contestants there are. So like that nationals we had where there's 83 competitors in out in limbo, like there's essentially 83 points to be had at the top, which isn't how it works normally. But just saying that the point spread becomes so big depending on where you get in that with all these athletes. So if you can just stay in the top, somebody might get a first place finish, but they also might get an 8th. And if they get an 8th when there's only 10 athletes, that means they're only going to get 2 points. That points doesn't add up very fast. But if I can get 4th or 5th every time, I'm always going to be consistently getting, 6 points. And that can build really fast. Training for that sandbag, though, training sandbags at all, I'm always surprised at how people, I guess, sometimes they'll just blast themselves with that, and I don't think that that's an event style that you should just be completely killing yourself on. I'm getting ready for this sandbag event that's a 4 distance time, or a 4 distance event with a 325 sandbag, but I'm probably not going to touch a 325 sandbag until the 3rd week before the contest. But I can walk a lot farther with a 250-pound bag or a 270-pound bag, and then that adapts my body and my mind to knowing where these distances are that I want to hit, and being able to give it your all at contests is just about being adapted to that. So, because it's a grit event in my mind. Sandbags are grit events, and nobody's going to out-grit me.
No, we say the same thing. Like training, people sometimes you see they'll train because they don't have stones, unfortunately, but they'll train sandbags same way as a stone. It's like it's not the same, because a stone, it's like it's static, pick it up, go down. A sandbag, it's gonna move on you, and if you don't get just right, and half the technique is just picking the darn thing up and getting in that position, and then doing your workout with it. It's one of those things. I go, it's unique. You've never done it. People need to train with them. But the question I had for you mentally, so you had the stumble, you knew you came 5th. Now, how were you going into it the rest of the competition?
I mean, I was excited. I see they put stumble in that article. I never said that. I tried to jump.
Okay.
that was my full attempt at just going ham and finishing it. So it may have come off as a stumble, but I figured I thought most people saw it the way I saw it. That was a jump.
Like in your mind, it was like just glorious leaping. It was like.
When you're 550 pounds together, it doesn't look like a jump.
That's right. What does that writer know?
Yeah.
No, but that's what I read that article and I laughed. But that's just all up to interpretation. But no, it's I was, even after the event, I think that was our 2nd event of the day.
Yes.
Just for the fact that I had made it to that point in competition, I was happy and excited. And I mean, I was with a bunch of firemen, and so I try to pull this part back some, because I don't want to be the person that's up there going, "Oh, I'm gonna win." I don't like those people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a part of the group. I want to be a part of the brotherhood, and that's what that whole contest was situated around. Was that it was us competing in front of a bunch of crowd and providing entertainment, and that's what it was. And so that's the way I treated it. It just happened to be a happy coincidence that I came out on top and won.
We say the same thing all the time, and Paul and I have absolutely talked about this. I said, like, say if Paul and I are in our competition, and say we're going to pull like 600 pounds, and I fail it, but I know my buddy is going next. Like, you're still rooting for him because you want to see that weight go. I mean, it's still part of the team. I mean, it's just a way it is. Just a bunch of meat puppets and meat popsicles sitting there just pulling stuff and doing something that's ridiculous. And you're like, I want to see this thing. I want someone to do this. Like he said, take an entire 100 feet. Maybe some guys, they stop at like 50 feet. But then you get that one guy who just goes through it. I mean, everyone just like let's go.
Behind.
Let's go.
Yep.
Let's go. This is fantastic. It is one of those experiences that you just, You got to do it to understand it. I mean, it's fun to watch on TV, but when you're doing it and you live it and you train it, especially with your buddies, I mean, it's like if Paul wins, we all win. Granted, he's still the ultimate winner, but it's like, we all did this together. It's a cool little journey that we take. And going into your next event, because I'm trying to give the listeners pretty much what you did for World's Strongest Firefighter, which is kind of like where you got that's pretty much where I think you got your name in the spotlight. I mean, it was.
Yeah, the household name became started after that.
Yep. You had the axe hold. The third event of the afternoon was similar to the traditional crucifix hold, except the firefighters had to use axes with weights at the bottom. And I'm just trying to mentally picture that in my head. I mean, I watched it, but it's just one of those things where it's like it's already holding out like that.
Yeah.
And then you have weights at the bottom. Did you have a chance to actually prep that, or you had no idea going in, or how did you train for that?
I was curious about how they were going to fix weights, because I know that a fire axe only weighs, it can weigh anywhere from 4 to 6 pounds,
right?
Depending on what the style is. But I was curious. I had a feeling they would attach it to the bottom and let it hang freely, but I didn't worry too much about the length. My grip strength's so immense that whatever I have in my hands isn't going to move.
Okay.
But I actually trained with a 45-pound barbell and would hold it out to the side on my heavy days.
Oh, wow.
And then I would use dumbbells to hold for time and try to hit 2.5 minutes to really work, let the muscle develop to hold that type of tension for that long. I actually got cut off pretty quick in that event. I thought that I was still holding in a pretty good spot when she told me to bring it down, but it just, it's just different judging and different. We don't know, because I can prep and do my prep at home, but when you go to contests, they have an idea of what they think is correct, and I think we were a little off on that. But I mean, either way, it didn't matter.
Right.
But I wanted to hold it for over a minute. That was my goal. I like to blow that stuff out of the water whenever it comes to it, but I didn't quite make it.
And on here it says, did you know going into how they're going to do it? Because on here it says your back against the wall, your arms had to be parallel to the floor, and your job was to hold the axes at that position for as long as possible. And it says Burton managed to keep 2 25-pound axes in front of up in the air for about just under a minute. So you were close to a minute. She was. It says in the article, and it says he placed third in the event. Aside from fighting gravity, your shoulders, your arms, all your cores were gone together. And then you said, excuse me, I knew this was going to be one of my worst events, he admitted. I don't know anybody that does lateral raises and holds them at the end. And it says what Burton adopted to was started by holding a 20-pound dumbbells and work time of 75 seconds. After which he reached his goal, he worked up to heavier dumbbells, and he got pretty much, you got the ones up to 25 pounds, you got them for a minute. And it says typically it would be internal rotation in one of my shoulders that would cause me to drop. I just had to be more stacked my holds. So when you were doing it, did you feel a bit more moving around because you haven't actually trained with the implement, or if it was a static one that you've been training with, you think it would?
I think it was just because we were getting constant feedback from the judge about where it had to be, and it wasn't fitting that place that I had trained.
Okay.
So it being that lateral place, and I tried to watch some of the people who went before me to see where they were having that axe head hold, because it was going to determine where I grabbed the axe, because you had a whole axe to grab, and that would determine where that axe. I was assuming they were using the axe head as the baseline, and so I could kind of manipulate where everything was just by grabbing in a different spot. But I was getting constant feedback from the judge to adjust constantly, and that, I mean, it's just you don't have that in your gym setup, so you're not. My brain wasn't able to stay on the task at hand, and then eventually that my left shoulder, which it internally rotated, and then she said that arm dropped too far to continue. So,
and that was your standard, was like your 4-foot axes? Is that what the standard?
Yeah, I
was?
think so.
I think it was about 3.5, something like that.
And they were a little bit longer because they had that pin on the bottom with the weight.
Right. Yeah. So it was interesting to watch that, because when I heard that was the event, I was just like, I want to see how they're going to mount these things. So like, yeah, they're using axes, and I'm like, there's no place to mount a weight on an axe.
It didn't sound that exciting at first, but it actually ended up being an event I think a lot of people really liked.
Oh, well, yeah, because the way they shot it too, because you're like, you see it, they're like, ugh! And when you get that, you get the dramatic, and you got the crowd behind you, because like we say all the time, like holds are a boring lift on paper, but if you shoot it right, and if they do it right, it's one of those things where, especially like a minute threshold, like in a crowd, once you get like 45 seconds, that's when the crowd starts coming alive, depending on what weight class you're in, because it's like that's just a goal for anybody. Like that minute variable is like everybody likes because the crowd just starts to roar, and usually the athletes like sitting there shaking. You know, when we're on the mic, we're trying to hype them up, and then if they pass it, it just explodes. I mean, if they pass that minute barrier, so it's interesting to see people do that because it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hard to do, but it is like one of those stepping stones for strongmen is that if you can get to the minute, that's what you want. Because let's face it, most people ain't gonna hold it for a minute. It just not going.
No, not even close. But these guys, man, they were solid. Those firemen.
Oh God, yeah.
Wow. They gave me a run for my money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you look, I think that maybe you still buy the pay-per-view, but I know if you have it, you can go back there. You can find clips of it, and it is interesting to watch. It is really cool to watch. And the last event, so this is the one I think is interesting because you know you're a firefighter, you really don't have these to train with because they're just not available. But the fire hydrant load, right?
Yep.
So it was a standard. It was your standard fire hydrant. I mean, you pick it up, you gotta load it. How did you train for this? I mean, on here it says the last event was a fire hydrant load. Competitors had to lift 4 fire hydrants that are progressively heavier. That the last one on the podiums to stand them up. The hydrants that Burton had to use were the ranges of 175 all the way to 250 pounds. It's hard to find. It's hard to find hydrants in general, much less find ones that be that heavy. So like how do they make them? Like they just throw weight, like lead weight inside it, or like what did they do?
He put a big stem in the bottom of it,
Okay.
so there's already a stem that drives down the middle of it, and that's how you turn it to get the water to come up through it.
Right.
But he drilled up into that stem and then just put a cap on the bottom.
Okay.
It was brilliant what he did.
Yeah.
That sticks and stone guy, but
Yeah. And
they just plate loaded them.
Yeah, and you said so. Naturally, we had fire hydrants detached, gutted, and plate loaded for load. The plates are on the bottom, and then it says Burton won this event by lifting all 4 hydrants up into the platforms, and he did it in 17.17 seconds, and it clinched you the championship. When you did you know what you had to do going into it, or were you just like, are you just one of those guys like I'm just gonna do my best, and wherever it falls, it falls?
Turn it all off because I don't look at placements. I don't look at all that because till the contest is over, nothing's set in stone.
Right.
And I don't like creating an expectation where there is no real information. So they put it out and they told us before that event was going to be done by who was in first place. And as the people ticked down and I was still left standing in the back, I realized I was in the top 3 competitors, and then the third competitor went, and then the second competitor went, and it was just me, and I knew I was in first place. But I still tried to like turn that and push it out of my head because the work still has to be done, and the opportunities to get caught in an event that only has 4 events is pretty substantial. It's not hard to get caught with on that, especially if you have one really big mess up. But I went out there and just did what I had trained to do. I was fortunate enough to have a 225-pound
I was about to read that. Yes, you say
fire hydrant at the station. So,
and did you know going into it how heavy it was going to be, or you didn't know what the weights were until that day?
They told us.
Okay,
They told us
okay.
beforehand. They want us to succeed in front of everybody, so they made
Right.
sure the weights were available far in advance.
So what you have in the 225, which was almost the amount you needed to have, did you just do more reps with it, or did you just kind of like load weights onto it and try and lift an actual 251?
So because I couldn't take weight off of it, it was hard to work the technical aspect of
Right.
it. So I started with actually like low repetitions at the beginning. I did the opposite of what I normally do in training. Normally I'll do high repetition, lower weight, and then move to the low repetition, high weights. This one, because it was going to stay stagnant, I just wanted to work on not hurting myself and learning the implement itself. And so I had a platform to load it to, and I would load it a single at a time, take 2 or 3 minutes, load it again. And I would do that 4 or 5 sets, and then leave it for the next time. And then I would, gradually increase to 2, gradually increase to 3. And then by the end of the training, I would be doing 4 sets of 4, just to like overtrain for the event, because I was only going to lift 4 hydrants. But if I did it, 12 times in a training program, in a very limited amount of time, that I would be well prepped for the event.
Did that kind of get easier with time, or did you have to adjust?
It did.
Yeah, but at first,
Yeah, once you learned where the weight sat on the implement, once you learned what the best way was to get it up onto the platform, where to have your hands and where to let it touch in any of these locations, my technical mastery of it became a lot better, and the lift kept getting smoother and smoother every time I did it.
Yeah, and I love in the article, it says right there is that that was you did, and then from there it says you went right in the prep for the USS Nationals.
Yep,
I mean, that's
straight
much
in.
what you did. Paul, I'm gonna let you take over. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick.
Sure thing.
I'll be right back. But yeah, if you have any questions, I definitely want to talk to him about the Nationals, about getting ready for that from right after.
Yeah, what we'll cover during the you take a break and we'll just let's talk about diet a little bit.
Yep,
How
perfect.
what's your? I always preface this, folks, that I got up to 325 when I was 30 to hit my biggest powerlifting lifts, and then I did my last heavy nationals powerlifting when I was 35, and by then I was down to the 308s because I was a parent. So it seems like how you have your vitals monitored and so forth with computerized technology. What do you do? You're not, like I always preface, I'm not a registered dietitian. I will tell you what worked for me. So what works for you dietarily? Don't tell me it's Rockwell chili, because
No, definitely not that. So I'm a very simple when it comes to eating. I love chicken. I love meat. So I always eat 6 to 8 ounces of that in a meal, and I love vegetables. I eat salads. I eat Brussels sprouts. I eat cucumbers. I eat lots of fruits. I mean, whatever it is that's green or colorful generally ends up on my plate. I also love peppers. So I eat a lot of rice around the time when I work out for carbohydrates to stay loaded and all that. And then, man, I don't count calories, but I have a good idea. I used to count calories, and so I have that knowledge tucked away in my head, so I can see, I've got probably 8 ounces or even close to 10 ounces of chicken on my plate. I'm gonna, I don't need to have like one of my scoops of protein because I'm getting extra in for this meal. And I supplement real heavily too with protein powders, pre-workouts, post-workouts, taking creatine and all that. Nutrition for me is pretty simple. I just like to cook one meat for the week, and I cook 10 pounds of it, and then whatever vegetables I prep, I'll prep that day with it too, and I'll eat that all week long.
Very interesting. So chicken, not didn't mention red meat. Not a lot of red meat.
So I do eat a fair amount. I love steak. I
Sure.
love beef, but chicken is the staple. But because you can tell if you're on chicken for a long while and you go and eat a bunch of red meat, you kind of get a little sluggish.
Sure.
And,
You sure?
sometimes it's kind of-
Yeah, chicken and fish seems to digest a little bit easier, but a steak will put you to bed, or can give you that Thanksgiving feeling for sure. Um, so you're not sponsored by anybody. I've been involved in this game for a long time. I like myself. I like desiccated liver as a supplement. Something that's been around since like the 60s, and I don't eat a lot of liver in my diet. I will, but I don't take the time to do it. But I like that, and I find that helps. And strength athletes have used that over the years. So when you use a protein powder, what is it? A whey base? Is it casein? Is it a blend? Is it some egg? What type of protein powder is agreeable with your system, sir?
I use a blend of. I like having the whey for the fast acting protein, and then I also like having the micellar casein and the egg protein for the longer lasting proteins. I like to feel like it's in my system a lot longer, because you're not just, if you throw and wash the muscles with whey protein, it comes in and it goes out. It just feels very fast. I like to have the protein that sits and repairs and is a part of the process for more than just 20 or 30 minutes when I got to go use the restroom after I take a protein shake.
Yes. Yeah. When I was going from like 275 to made the commitment to be a super heavyweight powerlifter, my gym back in the day would have like they would sell commercial drinks. This thing was called White Lightning. It was fruit punch, but with 40 grams of whey. So I would do my main lift, the West Side style. And then during the assistance, I started sipping whey protein that easily digested. It had some sugar in it. I don't think they make that product anymore, but you reference it. You use intra-workout. And I was able to put on eventually 50 pounds of good body weight in 3 years training hard by intra-workout nutrition. So what is your intra-workout nutrition that you like to follow?
So it's mostly based around performance. So generally it's some sort of carb. I've actually transitioned over to, I like fluids. I have trouble staying hydrated just because of how much I'm outside. The gyms I use are all, non-air conditioned. So I usually take a body armor with me, and I'll drink that throughout a workout. I like to eat Rice Krispie treats in the midst of working out to replenish some glycogen stores and help me finish those brutal workouts. And if I kind of stopped taking protein like food protein in the workouts, and I'll just transition over to a protein powder that I'll keep with me, and I'll put 2 scoops in 32 ounces of water, and I'll just drink on it slow through the whole process. And
Sure thing.
that's just the simple format I have of that. I don't like to eat during workouts. I get real full, and I feel like it affects performance. It affects the way I put my belt on. It affects the way I bend over. So I try to keep that at a minimum. And those Rice Krispie treats, they just don't fill you up, but they flood you with carbs.
Sure thing. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of watching all you guys on YouTube too, right? Of course. And like I'd see Eddie Hall, and Eddie Hall would hit like 16 ounces of milk halfway through his workout. I'm like, man, if I did that, and I know that the milk's better now, Fairlife, and
Right.
they've screened all the lactose out of this stuff, which is, but I mean, obviously that's why he's Eddie Hall, right? He's deadlifted 1,100 pounds, and it's like, man, I don't like to slow myself down either during training, but no, that's really interesting how you apply that, and just with common sense. What did you graduate high school weighing, for example?
I left high school at actually 242 pounds. I competed my last year in powerlifting in the 242 category. So I lost over 30 pounds to get into that category. And I wanted to get into a very competitive group of guys to compete against, and the 242s were the ones that I was capable of getting to and were extremely competitive. The super heavyweights, I would have been fine in that category, but I would rather have gotten a lower placing in a higher set of athletes than to just win and not really have to work for it. And that was kind of where I ended up in that time frame. That senior year, the top athletes in the super heavyweights were no contest. The 242s were the ones that were killing it. And that was the year I almost got my I can't remember the score, what it's called, but they'll do the pound for pound lifter.
Wilks,
And that was
Wilks
my
or
dream.
Dots or something.
The
they
overall
call
or
it.
something like that. Yeah.
It was my dream to win that at a contest, and I got within point, I think 0.1 or 0.03% or something absurd
You have a kid.
of somebody in the 198s. I almost won that contest, but
Yeah. I one time lost the best lifter trophy in the Santa Barbara Open, and man, the 148er was just talking. I was a talker too. He was talking a whole bunch of smack. So my training partner Art LeBaire just leaned over to him and said, "Listen, when they go to the circus, they go to see the tigers, not the fleas."
That's great. Andrew, I know we talked earlier in the podcast. Yeah, you're talking about your high school, and you've ran track and all. You've been from Texas. Did you play ball or anything? Did you play football?
I did up until I think it was probably junior year. I actually had my first knee surgery when I was a freshman. I took an impact to the knee, and then I couldn't walk upstairs anymore without falling over. So they did what was called a lateral release. The muscle on the outside of the knee had gotten so tight it was pulling the patella out of alignment, and it would just lock my knee up. So he cut the tendon. I've dealt with it ever since. It's it's one of those things I wish I could go back and tell little me that, hey, there's rehab exercises you could do. Don't go straight to cutting. But we just didn't know any better, my mom and I. So
sure thing.
It is what it is.
That's crazy. So you now not only do you have a flappy toe, you also have a missing tendon out of your patella. Jesus.
Yeah.
Get
this.
You're still doing this.
Yeah. Is that are those the only two? You had a surgery with that. Is that the only surgery you've had?
It is.
Wow.
Thank goodness. Yeah, I've had 3 of them compliments of lifting. So, when a tendon detaches, it's very unpleasant. But, they always check any type of, that being said, like rehab modalities. Like I popped my shoulder incline benching when I was 29, right? And back in the day, there was a magazine called Iron Man that was good information. So a chiropractor named Joseph Horgan used to write for him. I grew up reading him. I got to be treated by him in California. So he did ART to me with his thumbs and he rebuilt my shoulder without surgery. So have you ever used any of those modalities like active release technique?
I do. I actually have a guy here in town that he keeps up with his stuff. He was at ART originally. He's doing he does a lot of lymphatic stuff now. But he uses his ART with me. He actually came to nationals with me. Was there at the national contest we were at, and he brought some of his Robo Fitness stuff. He's got a EMF mat that I laid on, and he use that on me. And I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew what the technology did, but I trust Tito very well, and he's not led me astray yet. But he's unlocked with this shoulder before. I've had a nerve injury over here before. It was really minor, but it was keeping me from being able to press effectively. He got that unlocked within like a week. And then he works on my hip a lot from the knee surgery. I have a lot of issues on that right hip. And so he works through a lot of the scar tissue, and he breaks me up and gets all these nerve pathways opened up and cleaned up so it can fire off effectively and work the way it's supposed to.
Amazing. Yeah, no, they can do amazing things, and I don't take care of myself like I should at times, but I've had some miracle workers like that. So I haven't done Donnie Thompson's body tempering, but I've had some chiropractic over the years. Some's good, some bad. I mean, you guy your size, when I was your size, like your chiropractor should be tired. They should save you for Friday at like 4:00 when he's done with you. If they're just, some of them were just not putting in the work, put it that way. It takes a lot to manipulate, and it's actually painful for you, but that's what's effective, right? Some of the stuff Tito's done to you is probably very painful, but it's a tough love, right?
It is, and he comes off the mat sweating about as much as I do. So
that's exactly what you want. What do you want to give him a shout out? Does he have a business or a social media handle or anything, or an address?
If anybody's looking for work to get done, Tito's Body Works. He's in Rockwall. You can look him up online. You can book your service right there on your phone, and you should use him if you're looking to be a competitive athlete, or if you're just looking to have better health. He'll help you with all of it.
That's outstanding. Yeah, that's what you find when us strength athletes get to talk. Like, you start thinking, this person really helped me. I mean, this person, and it makes all the difference in the world. I don't look at it anymore. You can look on YouTube, you see some of these football factories like Georgia and Alabama and the University of Texas, and they have all these people on staff, or now all these documentaries behind the scenes, how the UFC has their performance center. And good for them, but us guys out here just hacking away with our Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, and we're trying to find the best we can. We end up drinking the horse electrolytes, but what can we do? Yeah. We do the best we can. But when we talk, we stick together and say, hey, this person did me a wealth of good. So that's fascinating. Now, what about sun? Over the pandemic, I learned I had low white blood cells, so I started getting more sun exposure, and you can see I'm a white guy, but like the sun raised my white blood cell count after getting a healthy tan. Do you like any vitamin D or sun exposure?
I take a vitamin D supplement with the K2 to help it uptake, but I'm out in the sun constantly. I'm very fair skinned, so I try to limit exposure to 10 or 15 minutes at a time, and then get out of it for 30 minutes or more. But I'm constantly sunburned, so I put on sunscreen in the morning generally. So I think that's also been shown to decrease the effectiveness of pulling in the vitamins. But that's why I supplement with 5,000 IUs every day.
Sure,
but,
yeah, and in your career, every 3 days you're out. You might get caught out there in the sun for longer than you would think, right? Like it. So that's your exposure in there for.
Every time we go out on the boat, it's an hour and a half easy, and that's just you're getting it from two sources. It's come from up, and then it's reflecting up. So
sure thing. Yeah, no, I really appreciated us spending time with you today, and what do you want to explore further, Sean?
I got a couple questions for Andrew. So you said you got into this, obviously your story, which is awesome. You've been with your wife now for how many years?
Man, I won't be lying. It's since high school, so it's over 10.
Over 10
I don't
years.
remember how long we've been married.
Okay.
Because it's all run into one big happy, time frame.
Now, one of the things that we've talked about this that you run into, especially with relationships and long-term relationships and very serious relationships, is that when you go to the gym, people think, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym for an hour. That's not going to the gym for us. Like, going to the gym is like that's part of your day. It's at least 2 hours, probably 3 hours with stretching, and the older you get, that part just gets increasing and all that. So, have you had? I mean, just trying to actually be honest. Not know your ups and downs with this, but like your wife, I'm assuming, has been absolutely supportive for this from you. Now, has she always been supportive, or is it kind of thing she understand that this was a passion? Like, okay, he's really into this, and I get it. Like, how is that dynamic? To be successful at not only having a relationship but a marriage, but doing like a strength sport and being as an athlete that you are, at the tier that you are.
Yeah, she kind of gets the best of both worlds because I go to the gym while she's at work. So during the week, and then I've got all this equipment at home that I've put here so that way I can cut the drive off on those days when it's our time to spend time together. And sometimes she'll join me, which is always fun. I enjoy making it a family event. She's not real into working out, and that's fine. So I don't push, but I always make sure that I go in and I do what I need to do. But man, she's been there for every contest. She's taken off so much. She takes off the load for me. Like I don't like to have to drive. I don't like to have to use my mind a lot on contest days. I don't want to drive to the contest, think about which exit I need to take, think about not slamming into that 18 wheeler that's ahead of me that can't drive. So she takes a lot of this, stuff off me. She makes sure that I don't forget my lunchbox, which I've done once.
Oh no.
Oh
God.
yeah,
That must
I
be
mean,
brutal.
she's the part that I need. She's the part that I can't handle. She's the overflow, and she takes it on like a champ. But I'll tell you the pinnacle of all this has been when we did go to the Arnold. She was sitting there doing the recording for me out in the crowd, but she got a really good seat. She was like 3 rows back from the front,
Right. Yeah.
in the center aisle. So she had a unobstructed view of us on that. And the videos when I went back and watched them, her screaming.
Yeah.
I have never heard her sound like that before, and I've never heard her that into something before. Because neither one of us goes to like sporting events and all that, and we're screaming for our team to win and all that. That's what it really felt like. It was like that. Those like videos of like people at bars that are rooting for their home team. So it was a lot of fun to watch and see it come to a really happy place like that where
That's
we're both
awesome.
supportive of each other.
Oh yeah, and that's
Amazing.
and that's one thing we've seen too is like some of the couples we have here is that like their wives are the ones that are wrapping their knees or like they know what's coming. It's almost like a dance. Like they got this event, they're going this one. I mean, is she kind of like that with you? Like she has your stuff prepped, or you're just like, okay, I'm done with that, and she's like, here's your knee sleeves, here's your wraps, like let's go, let's keep going.
She knows that I can handle that portion. She just makes sure I get there with all my stuff intact, and then
she's like,
yeah, and I know her. She doesn't like to be in crowds, and
right.
so I sent her off to a nice quiet corner for a little bit so she can rest between events, and then she can come in whenever it's time for me to go and perform, and she can be a part of that process, and then she can go back to her corner. But I'll go sit with her and wait for my events to come up too. So it's just a matter of learning both of our nuances and figuring out where we all fit in the puzzle when it comes to contests. But she's always there, and she's always uncomfortable to be in the crowd. She's there for it. So
and that I'm sure that goes a long way with you knowing that she doesn't like to be there, but she's there supporting you.
Yeah.
And that it's just like, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to say that, and I try to tell people. Not to get personal with me, I haven't had the best relationships. Paul knows my story. So, it's like I've had my ups and downs, but it is when you see people that can make it work and the ones that do make it work, it's a dynamic that it's so impressive because it's not only you're doing everything, but they're doing it right alongside you in their own capacity. And it's impressive. I mean, it's something that a lot of people can't do. But the fact that you can compete at a national level, hopefully going to get your pro card, and she's been there every step of the way, which is also, fantastic as well. And again, and you also have a 9-to-5 job, doing this, and then you got that to deal with on top of it. But it is pretty cool that you guys have figured out how it works for you guys, and you just mastered your plan and just enacted it. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. Is there any other things you want to talk about there, Andrew?
Man, I'm wonderful to talk about whatever you want to.
Okay, great. Did you want to take a break, or what do you want to keep doing, Paul? You want to keep going? You got any questions for him outside the box, or?
No, what I think going forward is like this has been amazing, but I think what we need to do is just regularly talk to him.
That's why I said I'd love to have him up
It's
there.
going to be like a monthly. If we could ever have him here in Arizona or get to one of his events.
I personally, Andrew, if you want to do it, like I said, I don't want to take away from your time. I don't want to take away from your time for training, your wife, or your personal, or anything like that. But with the 2 events you've done, you did the Arnold, so at USS, and now this is kind of the journey to your pro card. We love to have you on once a month and just kind of like say where you're at, what you're going into. And I know not like the day before or anything like that, but maybe that week, kind of the deload week, or if you have time, kind of be like, okay, we're getting ready to do this. And then when you're at the show, if we can talk to you after the show and see like what went on and kind of like because
I'm more than happy to be on whenever y'all want. I've used this as a way for me to work on my public speaking and just to better myself and put us all out there. So, and I hope to see you guys at some of these events. I hope they come out and hire you guys. I think the Nationals is one of my favorite ones I've seen the streaming for. So I'd love to see y'all's company get utilized more often too in the area.
I mean, like I said, we don't do any advertising, but and that's mostly on my fault because trying to get everything. But now we have time to do it, so I'm trying to ramp that up because obviously, going into what we have going on, is that in Arizona we are the you hear all the time we're the number one, but we are in Arizona. This is our state, and and we're venturing out, and we took that gig in Texas because I kind of told Paul when we first started this thing 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, I really don't want to venture out the state because it's this, but when you get an opportunity like Nationals, especially working for John and them, I mean, it was just like you have to take it. And we've known Willie and Paul's known Willie for a long time, so to help his corporation grow and now I was going to do it, and it was a blast, and get to meet all you people out there as well. But like next week we have a powerlifting competition because we do that as well. So we got that over there at Tucson Strength. So we're going to have, I think there's about 40 plus athletes that are going to be lifting, powerlifting.
Oh, yeah, it's sold out in a month.
Yeah, like out
Wow.
here. So Arizona. I'm telling you, and I'm going to say it to them blue in the face, and I'll argue to the day that I die, okay? Arizona is probably the strongest state on the West Coast. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody says California. It's not. It's Arizona because the weather's fantastic. You can do stuff all year round, and you're starting to see people influxing from all these states coming in here because you have opportunities. And there's stuff, like it's almost every month there's like 2 or 3 powerlifting or strongman events that are happening here.
Easily.
And when you try to find stuff on the West Coast, it's just not there. I mean, just go look on Iron Podium. There's nothing really going on. I mean, you look at Arizona. It's like this is where we're doing it, So we got that, and then we turn right around and go to one of our big premier events is over at the Westworld in Scottsdale. Julie Schmay from Broken Strength, she puts on the Broken Strength Games, and that's another thing in itself. Where we get to go there. I mean, it's where the Barrett Jackson show is done. So we love going there. For the
that's USA Fit, which they also have in Dallas. That company, the Parisos, are based there, but they bring their expo here, so we get to do that show.
Yeah, in August. We kind of have like a tradition to where like we're always there. We're always the first ones there, last ones to leave. But on game day, we get there first, and I kind of cue everything up, and we got our big speaker system there, and nothing starts really until we play the national anthem for our event because we're the first event to go. And I took a shot of it last year where I had my phone out, and you just saw people that everybody, the whole venue just stopped, and they had this huge flag that everybody was watching. And I mean, it's one of those things that people, I'm like, it's a moment you got to capture that. Like you have to get that. That's what people don't realize. Is once you see that, the athletes you kind of get there, like they're revving up. People that are watching the stream, they're getting hyped up for it. I mean, it's just a cool thing to do. So we take pride in that. And then right after that, I do IZW events all year. We usually do about 4 a year. So we'll go up to Mesa, go up to Phoenix and whatnot, and I do the announcing for them, like on the mic. I'm the heel announcer, and then the other guy does the voice announcer. Then sometimes, before I had my incident, do some performing in the ring, but that's very limited, man. Like I said, but that's always fun to do. And then you got Tim Talmadge and them up there with the arm wrestling competition. So I mean, we do strength sports. That's where we're at. And that's what Valor and Venom started with. It's just honestly, it's to showcase the strength athletes. That's what we're doing this for. It's the main reason we started, and it's the one reason I want everybody to understand is that it's for you guys. That's what it is. And you get cool stories like you and people overcoming adversities and stuff like that. And you really get to realize that these are just ordinary people that have a lot of similar things to you, and that just motivates you that if they can do it, then I can do it as well. Because, I mean, right now with the internet, and we're doing this right now, this is on the internet forever. So, when you're old, you got your grandkids or whatnot, you can say, hey, you want to show what Grandpa used to do? And it's like, there's no denying. It's not like, I used to bench press 405 pounds when I was in high school. It's like, all right, you got any pictures? Well, no. It's like, well, this allows you to basically be like, well, watch this. I don't need to brag about it because it's right there. It's just, it's one of those things that's the whole ring. It's leaving the trail that you're going to blaze, and anybody that we can showcase on this thing. It's like, this is the moment we want to give you. And that's the whole point behind it. So
it's great that there's somebody out there doing it because there aren't a whole lot of people showcasing the strength athletes.
No, you got us and pretty much ADL, and Don's a good guy, and we always talk back and forth every once in a while on social media because like there's some shows that like they can't do because of what's going on, so they'll try and get me to do it, and that's what we try to do because I mean it's growing the sport, and that's what Paul and I have always said. We want the sport to grow, and no one was really doing this, and honestly, up until about 3 years ago, because that's when they started. That's actually when we started, and Don got in with Shaw and all them because people really didn't realize that there was another brand out there, which was fine because, like I said, we have our mission of pie and he has his, which there's no rivalry. It's all camaraderie. But we love what we do because, one, we're athletes first. Two, we're showcasing athletes, and 3, it's the most fun job to have. Just talking about strength and just talking about, things in general. I mean, it is. And again, it's fun. And I mean, like, we can sit here and talk to you for another 4 hours if you want. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, Andrew, it's been an absolute blast to having you on here. And like I said, I would love to be, not trying to say like we're going to be the only one to showcase you, because God, I hope people have seen this. I hope other people start getting you on podcasts, because they need to. They need to know more about you. But if you're willing, we'd love to have you on here, like, just building up until your events, and talking about your befores and talking about your your aftermaths as well. So
Absolutely. I'm 100% in.
yeah, and I see you keep posting Cerberus. You try and get sponsored by him, because I mean, the main guy was there. So I mean, yeah, that's what
Ken Nowicki was there.
Oh, he was
super nice. I got to.
he was,
but then he was swamped.
He was he was hustling the whole time.
I went and talked to him, bro. I made sure to introduce myself.
Helping everybody. So yeah, no, we hope you get sponsorship, and we appreciate the time, and I'm looking forward to hearing next time we speak how you showed your nationals to your mom, and she enjoyed it. So show her this, a shout out to your mom. She did a great job raising you, and this has been highly enjoyable, and we look forward to you. And going forward, we can. We talked earlier before we went with started recording live, but like the vision, I feel after coming out of a law enforcement career, and you at the height of your public safety career, it would be really nice if down the road, like, your expertise could be passed on to all the Texas and firefighters worldwide and nationally, like how you can, you don't have to be a competitive strongman to have strongman training and strength training, correct nutrition and cardio be a part of making you a more effective public servant. I mean, I was amazed when I lived in Texas. Texas, we all know it was its own country at one time. It's awesome. No, it
still is.
It's a whole month. It's a whole month. And when there's 2 strongman corporations, federations in the United States, and we're Switzerland. We get along with everybody. But,
yes.
We're very familiar with USSS. We've done work with Willie Wessels as our friend, but our state chairman is in USSS, is Julia Smay, is a friend, and she hires us to do shows. But like, I know when we're asking about USSS in Texas, they're like, yeah, they have 4. They don't have 1 state rep. It's so big,
4.
They have 4. And I mean, I was looking on Iron Podium before I got with you today, and I was like, man, there's like 20 contests in that federation. And I didn't even look at Strongman Corp. So it's great to see the opportunities that are out there to compete, but also to give back to the mainstream. Like, there's not a firefighter out there or law enforcement where I come from, or military like Sean's background, that's like, man, I'd be great to be stronger at my job. I'd be more resilient. I'd be resistant to disease. My mental strength would be at an all-time high, because that's what it's all about. So I look forward to seeing what you do in the future, and it's amazing your competitive career has reached so many people, and it's a pleasure to meet with you and speak with you. You are the epitome of what a strong man is, and that you give back. You're strong for a multitude of people, and we appreciate that. You
inspire the hell out of us there, Andrew. Trust me, you do. It's fantastic. And of course, being a firefighter and having that background, you're always going to be, you're always going to be one of my favorite athletes to watch.
Yeah, and us in law enforcement will never say, you firefighters just polish up the truck to go into, so you can go into Tom Thumb and impress the girls while you pick up ice cream. We won't make any jokes like that.
No, because we'll be eating the ice cream and drinking right as you're doing it. Like, what?
not to his face.
Yeah. Andrew, again, on behalf of Valor and Venom, thank you so much for doing this and taking the time out of your day, and over to share your story. And it's not even tip of the iceberg. We kind of went all over the place, because we were just excited to have you on here. And like I said, if you're willing, we'll stay in touch and we'll get you back on there. And if you want to see us do another live production, we got the powerlifting me at Tucson Strength, next Saturday. I think we're going to probably start streaming around like 8 or 9, depending on what time they want to start. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 8. So we'll be there pretty much all day until it's done. And the last time we did it, it was fun. It was the first time that Danny Suarez, hired us. Because going into it, you're always curious what you're going to get. And then he was like, okay, you guys are not just there with iPhones. Like, okay, we're streaming. It's like, no, you guys saw us at Nationals, what we do, and that's and we tell people all the time. So we don't matter if it's an event in your garage with 10 people, or it's a national show with over 550 athletes or something like that. You get the same thing. When you hire us, is what you get. And you've already, made comments about us that you've enjoyed it, and that's all we want to hear, is that they've enjoyed it. And the bottom line is that when you're in Dallas, Texas, or wherever you're at, people that can't be there, that are your fans, they can watch you and they can still relive these moments with you because you only get one shot at these things.
Yes.
You know, and that's the whole point. So, you know, Paul, you got any save rounds?
Nope, I'm getting hungry, and if you are 325, you're way hungry after 2 hours and 20 minutes.
He ain't drank any water.
Oh, man, he's probably gonna go to- I know.
I've literally finished this. I finished this, and I'm looking for something else to drink here in a second. But hey, we appreciate Andrew, and we're definitely gonna stay in touch with you. And again, you can follow him on Instagram. That is Andrew. Is it A Burton at 428?
A Burton 428, yeah.
Burton 428. I double check that real quick, and grow his YouTube. Because I'm telling you, it's going to be interesting. And like I said, you are in the sights of the world's strongest men. They are watching you. I'm telling you right now because you are a threat.
I'm excited.
Yep.
I'm excited to be there with him one day.
Absolutely. So we hope you are too. All right, so we go ahead and start the music, which means that we're about ready to wrap up this fantastic show we had here today with Andrew Burton, world's strongest firefighter and USS National Champion from Texas. My friend, honestly a pleasure, and we cannot wait to see you later. Again, us from Valor and Venom, we'll take a break here, and we'll see you all next week at a 2-time strength powerlifting competition. You all have a great night.